Hey guys, how we going? Welcome to Talking Boxing. It is Monday, April the 7th, 2025, and welcome to everyone that's tuning in tonight and also listening after the fact on Spotify. Big weekend, of course, in Australian boxing. Tim Tszyu with the big win over Joey Spencer. What did you make of it? If you didn't hear my thoughts, just check out this morning's Walking Boxing. I went through the whole card. I thought it was a good event. A couple of surprises in there as far as the event itself goes. A few of the fights. Really impressed with Tim, although we'll see what everyone else thinks about it as we get going. But I said on Walking Boxing this morning, I didn't know whether it was a case of Tim being or performing that well or Joey Spencer performing that poorly, and whether we maybe overestimated Joey Spencer. Look, no matter what you think, I thought it was a great performance from Tim. Regardless of the performance that Joey Spencer put up, Tim did exactly what he was supposed to do. He got the win, and I was really impressed with the way he went about it. I think in the lead up to it, I'd always said that he just needed to win. It didn't really matter how, and he 100% did that. But I was really impressed by the fact he kept his composure, kept his cool, and just really methodically broke Joey Spencer down. So fantastic performance from Tim. Great to have him back. It was good to see him smile. It was good to see the excitement in his eyes. Great to see his team, with some excitement as well. And they might have got a little bit excited after the fight, No Limit and everyone with what might be next. But either way, hey, I'm not going to, hose that down, because I thought if anyone deserves this type of win, it's Tim Tszyu. We had a very, very tough 2024. So great to have him back. I can see there's lots of comments in the chat at the moment, so we'll get to them. If you haven't watched the show before, you can see the comment section there, the live chat. Just put your comment, question, remark, whatever it might be in there. And as long as it's tasteful and respectful, I'll read out every single one. All right, so let's get into it. I can see, again, they're all over the place. I've got the live YouTube beside me, so I can see the actual order they come in. Let's start with old mate Big J. How are you there, mate? What do we got? We'll get you first, if I can find your statement there or your question. All right, first one. Statement made by Tim in what was a better performance than George versus Jake, as Spencer was a better caliber of fighter. Having said that, Spencer is a long way off the level of fighter that Tim needs to fight. Yeah, look, I said all along, Big J, with as far as Joey Spencer goes. Is that a... Hang on, what was that? Sorry, I thought there was a super chat. Sorry about that. Or was it? No, it wasn't. All right, sorry about that. Yeah, hang on. It is. Where are we? Right down the bottom. There it is, Andy. I'll come back to you in a sec there, Big J. Hang on. I've got to get the super chat first. They always take precedence. Hello, fans, Tara and chat. Congratulations to all the winners over the weekend. In this case, Tim Tszyu, for getting back into the winner's circle. Smash the like button, folks. Thanks very much there, mate. All right, sorry, Big J. We'll get back to your comment there, if I can find it. Look, yes, as I said before, Spencer, really disappointing. And you're right that Spencer is a better caliber of fighter. He is a long way off the level, but look, as I said before, Tim just needed to get a win. Didn't matter. Look, I wouldn't have been stressed at all if this opponent for Tim Tszyu was, in the old definition, a tomato can. I know that's disrespectful to a lot of fighters, but just someone who was just going to be easy to bowl over. I didn't care. Tim Tszyu just needed a win. I was surprised I went for someone like a Joey Spencer. I'd seen Joey fight a few times, and I thought I did think that Tim would win, no problems, but I did think it was a little risky, considering mainly just more the mindset of Tim. Ability-wise, I thought Tim more than had him covered, but I must admit, it was just what version of Tim is going to show up, and I thought he was super impressive. And as I said before, I was really impressed by the fact that he didn't let the outside noise in, the pressure, stuck to his game plan, didn't get flustered, didn't get caught up with what Joey Spencer was trying to do. Not that he really tried to do anything, but I really like the fact that Tim, he took control of the fight and didn't give it up. And the fourth round started to open up. And I think once he landed a few punches, and you'd see the confidence rise, you could see the blood levels rise as well, and you could just see him really start to enjoy boxing again. It must have been a really tough one for him last year, especially coming off that Murtazaliev fight. So you could see that once he started to really get rolling, you could really see the punches start to roll out as well. I mean, he was throwing sort of ones and twos up to that point, But once he got going, there was 4, 5s, and 6s going. So it was great. Yeah, and I'm with you there, mate. Spencer's a long way off, but I don't care. He just needed to get his hand raised, and he did that. And let's worry about the next one after this one. Still with Big J. I think we got about 3 or 4 there. Big J will go through. Tszyu versus Thurman next, but it doesn't get Tim ready for the next. For the level of opponent he needs for the top level contenders at 154. Beating up another washed up, blow up 140 pounder. Isn't about to cut it. I'm assuming that says there, or doesn't cut it. Look, there's a lot of people saying that Tim should stay away from Keith Thurman, Big J. Now, only thing I'll say about that is, let's not get too excited about Keith Thurman's win over Brock Jarvis. I know he looked like, he'd wound the clock back 10 years, and I know he looked like he was ready to take on the world, Keith Thurman. But let's just be real. This is what we've got to keep focused, guys and girls. Okay, get the blinkers on. Keith Thurman beat you talk about a blown up 140 pounder. I mean, that's Brock Jarvis. Maybe a blown up 126 pounder, really, who hadn't really fought anyone in his career except for Liam Para, and we saw what happened there. All due respect to Brock. But let's not get too excited that Keith Thurman knocked out Brock Jarvis in 3 rounds. I think he's going to get a bit of a shock at what Tim lines up, and probably vice versa with Tim, what gets thrown up by Thurman as well. I think it's a really good fight for both of these guys. I know they're talking about maybe Fundora being in the mix as well. Don't think that's going to happen next. This fight between these two makes perfect sense. They need each other. And maybe it was a little bit of fate last year that, they were supposed to fight in Vegas and Thurman pulled out, a couple of weeks beforehand or whatever it was. It just seems destiny that these guys now are going to lock horns. It makes perfect sense for Tim because Keith Thurman is a name. I think he's still very, very beatable, is Keith Thurman. And again, I know he looks sensational against Brock Jarvis, but come on. And then for Keith Thurman, I think Tim Tszyu still is a little vulnerable. And I think his style probably suits Keith as well a little bit. So I think it's a perfect fight for Keith as well. So let's hope they get it on. They're talking about July. I did see today I was reading something talking about maybe even Madison Square Garden in New York. If it's Fundora, I think that is. If it's Keith Thurman, it will be in Australia. So I'm with you there, mate. But yeah, I'm certainly not getting too excited about the Keith Thurman performance that he might have. He's still got to prove himself, just like Tim does. So, all right. Where are you, Big J? Also, what's that? Thanks for giving my channel Aussie Boxing Talk a plug. I always get it wrong. Sorry, Big J. It's Aussie Boxing Talk. I appreciate. Just wondering, referring the last video, which one do the listeners think they are? Boxers fan, Oz Boxing fans article. So what Big J actually asked on his channel, I sort of commented on it a little bit the other day. In Big J's opinion, there's 3 type of fans. There's the casual boxing fans who just follow a particular boxer. In this case, it might be, I don't really know much about boxing, but I like Tim Tszyu, and when he's on, I watch him, or George Kambosos, or Jai Pataya, Liam Para, whoever it might be. And then we have we'll call them hardcore boxing fans, but they're more focused on the Australian scene. So they follow Australian boxers at the top level, or maybe all levels. And then, of course, you have the real hardcore fans. Well, not really real hardcore fans. I don't want to sort of pigeonhole anyone, but the fans that, doesn't matter whether it's Aussie boxing or world boxing, no matter what it is, they are all over, which is a lot of you guys and girls out there. So let Big J know who it is. Maybe we need to do a poll. I think most people would almost refer to themselves as hardcore Big J, but anyway. One person that does consider him hardcore is Tom's dad, Naz. Watch Tim's card: Joyce versus Hergovich, Torres versus Vianello, Abdullah Mason, highlights of Janabek and Jalolov's fight. Great weekend. Well, I envy Naz because I saw some highlights, but I didn't watch any of the other fights except Tim. I had to get up pretty early yesterday morning, and I'm an hour from where our pub is, so I had to drive up to there, get it all organised, ready to go, and we had a pretty busy day actually. And so I pretty much worked all day. Got home about 6 o'clock, had some dinner, had to do the orders for my business, and watched a bit of TV and hit the sack. And I had to be up at about 6:30 again this morning to go back to Bendigo where my pub is. So I haven't had a chance to really see a lot of it yet, mate, but I will. I did see some highlights of Joyce versus Hergovich. Not quite sure where Joe Joyce is. Well, maybe I do know where he's at. I think he needs to retire. He's had a few beatings over the journey has Joe Joyce, and he just doesn't look right for me. Torres versus Vianello, only saw the highlights of that as well. Good performance from Torres. Abdul Mason, didn't see that one. I did see Janabek's KO. Not much to see there. I didn't see, is it Jalalov, however you pronounce it. Yeah, I didn't see that one. I think, was that on the undercard of that one? I only saw Janabek Naz, but again, didn't beat much, did he? So, all right, still with Big J. He says, nice work to Tom. I think it's Tom's dad, Naz, Big J. Only committed to the Tim fight. Apparently my children need raising. Bloody hell, back in my day, you raised yourself and didn't bother your parents unless you wanted swift backhand. I know the feeling there, mate. But look, isn't it just great at the moment with boxing? Every weekend there's just something. I think, actually, I don't think there's much happening in Australian boxing for another month. I think Sam Goodman is May the 14th. I think the start of May, we have Canelo, we have Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, we have Inouye. What other ones are there? Oh, of course, Conor Benn, Chris Eubank. There's a few on there anyway, but not really much here in Australia. On main event, there's nothing listed at the moment on main event pay-per-view. Although, are we about to see Sam Goodman announced as the next pay-per-view? Are you going to watch it? Now, he's fighting a Mexican, Cesar, is it Espinoza, I think it is. I did look him up today, 19-1, I think he is. Hasn't fought out of Mexico. Hasn't really fought anyone of note. I'm not sure. Are you going to pay $70? I had a couple of people, and apologies if I didn't get back to your messages on YouTube or Instagram, guys. As I said, it was a really busy last sort of 36 hours. But I had a few people say they weren't going to get the fight yesterday, so I'm assuming if you're not going to buy Tim Tszyu versus Joey Spencer, you're not going to buy Sam Goodman versus Cesar Espinoza. Good comeback fight for Sam, but I think if No Limit, if they want to sort of win the fans back, they would make that fight free, but I strongly doubt it, boys and girls, that is going to happen. I think be prepared to fork out $70 for Sam Goodman versus Cesar Espinoza. All right, there's Eminem. Where are you, Eminem? I'll find your comment. All right, where is it? I can find it here. Sorry, guys. Actually, I'll start in any particular order. We'll get rid of that. I'll get rid of that YouTube thing there. All right, Double G. We'll give a couple of comments from you. What's that? I had a shot of Uzo every time he said Talivaha on Walking Boxing this morning, and I was smashed before I got to hear speak on the Tim fight. Thanks, mate. Well, when I got the hang of it, Double G, I was like, all right, because I was calling him Taliva and everything but his real name. Now it's Talivaha. And I just think it sounds pretty cool, his name. So I hope you didn't get too smashed, Double G. But once I got the hang of it, I couldn't stop saying it. So, and I'll say it once more. Liam Talivaha. All right, still with Double G. Funny how when talking about moving up to 160, Tim mentioned every name in that division except Janabek. Can't say I really blame him, though. I did notice that myself, Double G, because I actually blurted it out loud when I was watching the live telecast when he said, what was it, Dames, Lara, and Charlo, I think, are the three he mentioned. Well, I couldn't help myself and blurt out Janabek, and he didn't say it. I think it was an oversight, Double G. I just think on the spur of the moment, he just didn't remember Janabek. He's not the most sort of outgoing type of guy. He's Janabek, type of guy is Janabek. But I thought, I thought Tim spoke really, really well. And if he did the weight cut as hard as what he said, does he really have to wait at 154? I know maybe he wants the Fundora rematch. I don't know, even the Keith Thurman fight. If Keith Thurman wants that, maybe you say, all right, it's got to be at catch weight. Does Keith Thurman opt out of the fight? He hasn't got a lot of options, remember. And again, I know he apparently looked great against Brock Jarvis and everyone's on the Keith Thurman train, but take the Aussie boxing sort of view out of here from a world view. And if there's anyone from overseas, let us know your thoughts. Take off the Aussie glasses here. Geez, he beat Brock Jarvis. Were you really that impressed by Keith Thurman? Because I would think through the eyes of a fan from somewhere other than Australia, it would have been, all right, so Keith knocked out some club fighter. Who cares? That's what I sort of get the impression. Now, we know Brock Jarvis. We've seen him fight. Good fight. I'm not trying to disrespect Brock Jarvis, by the way. But based on him being unknown, hadn't really fought anyone of note except for Liam Paro, they would have looked at his box record and go, geez, he didn't even last a round against Liam Paro. This guy's fighting Keith Thurman. And what's that? He fought at 122 and 126 and 130. So I would have thought that they would be looking at Keith Thurman's winners. Well, he should have beaten that guy. Who is this guy? So maybe he hasn't got a lot of options either. And maybe Tim's got to say, all right, we meet at 156, 157, or we get no fight. I don't think Keith Thurman's got any big fights out there if Tim Tszyu and No Limit walk away and decide to go another route. I think all those 154-pounders might look at Keith and go, yeah, okay, but, again, who did he beat? Needs to work his way up. And Keith needs to get back there now. That's why he needs Tim Tszyu now. He mightn't say he needs him. He might say, I can fight any of these guys. Rest assured he can't. All those other 154-pounders have all got plenty of other options than the next 147-pound champion who's just come back and beat a virtual unknown club fighter in Australia. So I don't believe all the words coming out of Keith Thurman's mouth that, he's the A side and he's this and he's that. Okay, you're a big name. You were a big name. Former two-time champion. We get that. But we're talking about here and now. And I don't think he's got that many options apart from Tim Tszyu. And I think he's the perfect fight. And he might say he's got all these other options, but rest assured, I would think he's waiting for that contract from No Limit. All right. We'll keep with Double G. Hang on. Where are we? Aside from his patience, did you really see any changes in Tim's style? I was hoping to see more head movement, especially when he was walking forward, especially with Fundora now jabbing more. Yeah, look, yes, like you said there, Double G's patience. Did I see any changes? I probably didn't, if I'm being honest, Double G. And you're right about the head movement. Still a little bit alarming that he doesn't move his head at all. But if you look back at his fights, he never really did. But he also had a lot easier competition. I would like him to use a bit more head movement, but his poise is really good. He reminds me a little bit of Triple G. Now, when I say it reminds me of Triple G, I don't necessarily mean just by his style as such, but it's the way he fights. He stands in front of you and makes you punch first, and then he comes over the top of you. So you sort of define him as a aggressive counter-puncher. He comes forward, he stands in front of you and makes you punch, and then he counters you. That's what Triple G used to do so well. Now, Triple G was a bigger puncher than what Tim is, but I just thought Tim, he did that very, very well. Maybe inside, maybe did he throw a few more punches inside? That was probably one thing he did a little bit better. He went from body back to head a few times and mixed up uppercuts and rips to the body with hooks to the head. I thought he showed a little bit more, but having said that, we had a guy in front of him who really didn't throw a lot back or give a lot back, a lot of quality back anyway. So did I see any changes? No. What I did see, though, is maybe a fighter who has just gone back to basics that got him to where he was, and maybe that's all the change he needed to do at this stage, Double G, and that is just get back to being patient and cool, calm and collected. Nice, tight defense. I really was impressed with his defense. Hands nice and high, elbows nice and tight. He can have a habit of putting his chin up in the air sometimes, Tim, but I thought he did that well. And maybe the head movement's next. I don't know. But yeah, no, it was impressive. The only thing I would say that I think he needs to work on as well is he's vulnerable to a counter right hand. When he jabs sometimes, it doesn't come back to his chin. And I think he might be vulnerable. Maybe they've worked on the hooks, blocking the hook so much that he got nailed with Murtazalia. But I just noticed that when he jabs, he doesn't sometimes bring the left hand back quickly to his chin or wherever it might be, and he is vulnerable. But, hey, it's very hard to pick at his performance yesterday. But overall, look, he's got some stuff to work on, but I think he'll be okay. All right, one more from Double G. Here we go. Knew this was coming on Fight Hype. Glenn Jennings said, if that's Tim Tszyu going forward, I'm not sure if there's anyone at 154 that bothers us, to be honest. I did see that, Double G. Well, look, he's got to say it the way it is. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that, Double G, but look, he had to say something, didn't he? But I would think there'd be probably 6 or 7 other 154-pounders that might differ in that opinion, Double G. But look, he's got to do something to keep the momentum going. Tim's just had a great win. He needs to get some quotes to the press, not just here in Australia, but overseas. They need headlines to write and stories to write, everything else. And in this case, it's probably good that they pick up on this because it gets people talking, gets people commenting about fighting this guy and that guy. So yeah, I don't think it's accurate, Double G, but as I said, mate, he's got to get people talking about him. So, all right, John Stanley, how are you there, John? Did anyone notice Ben Damon at the weigh-in? Look at the piece of paper he was holding to announce some fighter's weight, and not look at the supposed scales that was meant to be there. The reason is, John, and I'm sure someone's commented on that. The reason is because it's a ceremonial weigh-in. It's not the actual weigh-in. So when they go to the weigh-in at probably, I think it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning, that's when they do the official weigh-in. So the weigh-in you see on TV is just for the cameras, just for the fans, the media, and everything else. So the weights, so the guys have already weighed in, and that's why he's looking at his notes and not the actual scales. And that's why you see some of the boxers jump on in shorts or a T-shirt or whatever it might be, and they look pretty happy with themselves because they've already made weight. That's why they don't look like death, okay? Because they've had probably 3 hours to refuel, 3 or 4 hours to refuel, have something to eat and drink. So if you notice the weigh-ins there, John, everyone's pretty happy with themselves. Everyone jumps on, put their hands up, go to the weigh-in in the morning, mate, and I guarantee you it's not like that. There's a lot more tenseness in the room, I can assure you, and everyone's trying to make weight, and it gets very tense in there. But when they go to the ceremonial weigh-ins, they're all nice and happy because they've already made weight 3 or 4 hours earlier. So when Ben Damon did that, he would have had the official weights already in his hand. So when they jump on the scales, I wouldn't be surprised if it's not even turned on. So it's just, we'll look at the scales, and he looks at his sheet and reads out the weight. That's why, mate. So, all right, Asbot. And the Australian boxing world breathed a sigh of relief. Tim's lost nothing. It seems only gained some hand speed. Humility and wisdom, well done. It's a testament to his mental and physical discipline. Very well said there, Asbot. I fully agree with that, mate. And look, what did he say after? He said, yeah, I'm back, baby. That's probably the most, we won't say controversial, but the more sort of flamboyant thing he said. I was really, again, I said this in Walking Boxing this morning, really impressed with him after the fight, the way he spoke as well. He had a little bit of a joke. Obviously, the team are very relieved. I was watching his wife at the back, and I was just watching her expression, and she didn't smile or really give anything. She almost looked like, well, there you go. He's all happy. He's back. You know, you finished bagging him out and laying the boots into him. That's the sort of impression I got from, I think it's Alexandra. And she looks like a very, very strong woman, I think. And she would probably need to be living with a fighter. But she didn't look, or she did look a little bit nonplussed. And I just think she was, as I said, she was along the lines of, well, there you go. He's won. You're going to stop, disowning him now, like a lot of you did. That's sort of the vibes I gave. And his team looked very relieved, which they should. And I just thought Tim spoke very humbly. And I just look, and you got to remember too, which is even better for Tim, the way he spoke, is that normally after you fight, now he's at the top level. I remember when I was fighting, when you finish, there's a bit of euphoria that sort of comes about you. You're excited. You really just lose yourself a little bit. It's excitement. It's hard to explain. And I was at an amateur level, so I'd just be staggered to think how he feels when he's in the ring getting interviewed. And I think all that combined, I thought he handled himself very, very well. And again, more relief, more than excitement. But I'm just happy for him and his team and everyone around him that they can now put the demons of Orlando to bed and just look forward, because it would have been weighing on him and his family right considerably. It really would have. And I'm just glad, no matter what happens going forward, aside from that happening again by someone else doing it to him, I think no matter what happens now, he'll be able to at least get on with his career and have a little bit of peace of mind. So, all right, Drew Keeley. How are you, Drew? I don't want to take too much away from Tim's performance, but I was very disappointed and underwhelmed by what Spencer brought to the table. You and me both, Drew. Look, again, was it Tim that good or Spencer that bad? I think it's more that Tim really rose to the occasion and got back to his 2023 form. Yeah, Spencer was very disappointing, Drew. He really was. And like you say there, very underwhelming. He just didn't do anything. But if you watch the fight carefully, you can see that I think he came out and maybe wasn't quite sure what he'd get from Tim. And I think he was a little bit surprised by, the Tim Tszyu that was standing in front of him. because Tim looked very confident and he stood right in front of him. He looked bigger, he looked stronger, more imposing. And I just think that Joey Spencer was very, very cautious about what to expect from Tim. I think I got the impression too that they maybe wanted to do that for 2 or 3 rounds and just see what Tim had to offer and then maybe pick it up for the rest of the fight. But Tim wasn't going to be denied. He stood in front of Joey Spencer, challenged him to fight, and Joey Spencer just didn't have any answers. And then when Tim started to land, the flow of punches just came after that, and he put him out of there. I was surprised again, though, Drew, and I said this morning, that they stopped the fight so quickly. Now, I'm not saying it shouldn't have been stopped because, again, his father's in his corner. They know him best, and they know what's right, and for Joey and everything else, and they stopped the fight. So no issues with that. But I was surprised how quickly the corner did stop it. Now, it might be different when it's your son in there rather than just a fighter. But I just thought he took some punches, but I just didn't see that he was actually hurt at any stage. Now, I know it was an accumulation of punches and everything like that. But, again, I was surprised that they threw the towel so quickly. I think even Tim was a little bit surprised. But anyway, as I said, they know him better than us. And end of the day, they made the right call. All right, Sam, I don't think Tim should waste his time with Keith Thurman. If he loses, it's all over. I think it's smarter to push for Fundora fight, bigger payday, and a chance at 2 belts. Well, in a perfect world, Sam, I think they would go for Fundora. No doubt. You're right. It's got the world titles at stake, obviously a bigger payday, the redemption story, all that sort of stuff. I think it will be massive. Either fight's going to be massive if they do it in Australia. If they do the Fundora fight overseas, still a big fight, but not as, well, the Fundora fight in Australia would be much bigger than what it would be in America. But either way, Fundora's a champion, so he's going to have to go to America. Will Tim to fight him? It is smarter to go for Fundora, Sam. And as I said, I think they would like to do it. It's just that I think at the moment, Fundora's probably got other things he wants to do. I think he still wants to visit the Errol Spence fight. Plus, he might have the Virgil Ortiz mandatory he's got to get through. Already talking Xander Zayos as well. So I just think at the moment, Keith Thurman, it's just the fight that makes sense for Tim because the Fundora fight's not going to happen next, Sam. So, as I said earlier, I think for both these guys, it's a perfect fight. All right, Flash Wilson, opinion. Does anyone believe Tim should bring in another trainer to work with Tim's uncle Igor before his next fight? I do, but it doesn't matter what I think or you think, Flash. It's up to Tim. Look, when you're winning, this is the thing. When you're winning, no one questions anything. Yesterday, did we question Uncle Igor in the corner? Did we question No Limit's promotional abilities? Did we question Glenn Jennings' managerial abilities? No. When a fighter wins, it's all good. Of course, the questions come when it doesn't go according to plan, which happened in Tim's last 2 fights, and quite rightly so. Everyone got a lot of criticism. My question, even though Tim did look good yesterday, Flash, I still think he should bring in another trainer. I don't think it's going to work with Uncle Igor. It's either Uncle Igor or just change trainers entirely, Flash. I don't think sort of relegating Uncle Igor to the side benches would work. It's either keep Uncle Igor or get a whole new trainer. And the fact that he looked good yesterday and probably felt good and probably feels he's back to where he was, there's no way they're going to get him any help, Flash, or replace him. I can guarantee you that. Who knows? Maybe Tim goes back to America to do some training and maybe does a little bit of work with some different trainers and works on a few different things. But you can be almost guaranteed, mate, that Uncle Igor will be in Tim's corner going forward. Still with Flash. What do you got there, mate? If Tim was to win against Fundora and Thurman, the haters will say he needs to beat Bakram now to prove himself an elite fighter. Tim is an Aussie who loves boxing and his country let's back him. 100% Flash. Of course we back Tim. Look, my advice would be not to fight Bakram Murtazaliev again. I just don't see the sense in it. Obviously, massive risks. You got to remember, Bakram Murtazaliev is not a marketable guy. He can't get a fight. Tim, after the Orlando fight, Tim, the one who got knocked out in 3 rounds in spectacular fashion, has had a fight. Bakram Murtazaliev, who was riding this wave of success, I suppose, has got nothing and has nothing on the horizon. He's got no fight. So he's not marketable. Now, in hindsight last year, there's no way in hell they should have put Tim in with Bakram Murtazaliev, but we didn't know that at the time. we all thought, oh, well, who's this guy? Oh, well, we'll get another belt. We'll get the rematch with Fundora, maybe get Crawford, Spence, whoever it is. Oh, how good's this? No one rated Bakram Murtazaliev. And look, shit happens, and it did happen. But for Tim to fight him again, I know it sounds strange after what Bakram Murtazaliev did to Tim last time, but Tim, for me, is still the A-side in that fight. He doesn't need Bakram Murtazaliev. He doesn't need him. He's back. I looked at all the sites over the weekend. All the overseas sites are all talking about Tim, and he's back, and he's getting a little bit of nibble from some fighters overseas. Tim is an A-side because I know what Tim brings to the table. Massive star in Australia. Everyone knows they're going to get paid and get paid well if they fight Tim here in Australia. Bakram Murtazaliev, I know it sounds silly, brings nothing to the table. And remember, it's a business. And Bakram Murtazaliev might be a very, very good fighter who, let's face it, handed up Tim's ass to him. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. Now finds himself out in the cold. If anything, did himself more harm than good. No one wants to fight him now, but everyone wants to fight Tim. So I know it's not fair, this game, but that's the way it is. I mean, it works out well for Tim because he's very, very marketable with a massive fan base, a whole country behind him. All the promoters overseas would know what Tim brings to the table. Bakram Murtazaliev brings nothing. So I don't think he needs to fight Bakram Murtazaliev again unless, look, it might be 2 or 3 years down the track, and sometimes the stars align and it might happen. Does he need to chase him? I don't think so. And you're right, Flash. Tim is an Aussie, and he does love boxing and his country, and let's back him. I agree. What do you got there, Big J? What's that with... have I missed a comment from you there, have I? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll go back here. All right, I'm behind, am I? Sorry about that. All right, Big J. Just saw from Noonan Boy, the great man, Noonan Boy. Spoke to him a few times last week. That Desley Robinson and Chloe Chaos is for the IBF and WBO middleweight titles this Friday at the Pavilion. I think that's on the Sam LeBruna show, I think, Big J. How did No Limit miss such an opportunity that easily could have had this fight, mate? Well, I would have loved to have turfed the Saavedra and Nielsen fight in exchange for this, Big J. I'm still surprised that No Limit haven't really gotten behind elite female boxing. They had the they've had the association with Shannon O'Connell, but not much sort of happening there with Shannon either. I know they had Chanel Dargan. She's now gone off to another promoter. I'm surprised they've never really gone for as I said, an elite female to really get behind. And Desley Robinson makes all the sense in the world. She's a really good character. She can fight. She's tough as nails. I think they could do worse than getting someone like Desley Robinson on board. But you're right. They could have easily replaced the Nielsen and Saavedra fight with this one. It would have been a hell of a lot better, and I think a lot better for Aussie boxing as a whole. Again, I'm not sure what the association with Saavedra. Obviously, there's a promotional agreement there or something, but I said in the video this morning that I thought it was a vibe killer yesterday. I really did. So it's on 7+, so I'll be watching. Great fight, an opportunity for both girls. So what's to go with 7+ then, Big J? So I'm assuming it's not part of the Premier Boxing Series. So, okay, well, if they've got it on 7+, even better. If you didn't know that, guys, watch out for the Melbourne Pavilion show this week, 7+. Good stuff. Still with Big J, looks like Thurman is agreeing to the Tszyu fight. Time to break out the Keithy's done himself a mischief shirts again. I like that. Yeah, well, he did say, I think, that the contracts had to be sent within the next 24 hours or something. I mean, Keith, settle down a bit, mate. It's all good. As I said before, it's not like you've got all the other 154-pounders beating down your door. So just relax a little bit. Tim and No Limit will get to in no time. Yeah, it's good to see. I think this fight's obviously been sort of semi-signed for a long time. You would think that maybe when Keith Thurman came to Australia to fight Brock Jarvis, maybe in the contract there was a clause that maybe Tim would be next if he wins. If Thurman won that fight and Tim won yesterday, which they both did, of course, and maybe Tim had the same thing. Who knows? I'm not sure they really needed it for Tim, of course, because they're Tim's promoter, so they just tell Tim who to fight and he gets in there and does it. But I got a feeling that maybe one of the conditions of Keith Thurman coming out to Australia would be that Tim Tszyu would be next. So, yeah, all roads lead to Tszyu versus Thurman, I think, Big J. And probably Is it the biggest fight in Australia since Pacquiao and Horn? Probably is. I know Kambosos and Haney is arguably bigger, but I think this one does bigger numbers. Speaking of George, he had a little bit to say on the weekend, didn't he? Very interesting. I'll quickly just say it now, or read it now. This is what he said. Where are we? All right. Oh, hang on. That's not it. Where was it? No, maybe I've got that wrong person. I thought someone else sent it to me. I'll find it. I'll talk about it in walking boxing tomorrow. There you go. All right, OG lights out. How are you, OG? Tim needs to stay away from Thurman. He's just come back with a win. Keep the winning streak going. Fight someone else. Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, OG. I think everyone concerned with Tim Tszyu would be pretty happy with themselves today, and they'll be 100% aiming for Keith Thurman. And as I said before, OJ, don't get too worked up about Thurman just yet. I know he's going to be difficult. He's a cagey fighter, experienced world champion, all that sort of stuff. But he's going to have to do a lot more after 3 years than beat Brock Jarvis for me to really get excited about his standing in the sport. Yes, he's going to be dangerous, but I still think Tim will get the job done over Keith Thurman. Tough fight, but I think he does the job. All right, Frankie D, thanks for the program. No worries, mate. Really look forward to both formats. Monday nights, we've got this one to hang out for. Love the walking boxing. Me and the boys watch it every day at Smoko. Great stuff, Frankie. Well, thanks very much for tuning in, mate. Much appreciated. And I love doing it. And my little mate Neil loves to come along for the walk as well. And I'm glad that you and your mates out there like it every day. Apologies too, by the way, guys. I had to be out of the door really quick this morning after I did this morning's video. So I didn't upload it to Spotify. I'll do it a bit later in case you want to listen to that as well. I normally get it out every day, but as I said, I was out the door by about 7 o'clock this morning. So actually on that too, guys, with the formats, I've got another show I'm going to start doing on Wednesday. I'm going to do it live, but it doesn't really matter. It's one of those videos you can watch back whenever you want. But I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, it's going to be called In Focus, and it's going to be picking a current day great. Well, maybe it could be any day great, I suppose. And we're going to match them with 10 other fighters, do a bit of a profile, a bit of background of the career and what they went through, but then match them against 10 other fighters from different eras and just see who we thought would win and why. I'm also going to put the fights on Instagram so you can vote, so I can get your opinions as well. We're going to do Alexander Usyk for starters, being he's arguably the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world at the moment. And we're going to match him up with guys like Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield and Joe Fraser and Ali and Foreman, all those types of guys, and see what we can do. So that'll be on Wednesday at 7 p.m. if you want to tune in. And as I said, if not, then just watch it later on YouTube. But we'll do it live. We'll record it live. All right. Naz, what's your thoughts on Sam Goodman's fight announcement? Would be good to see him step up to an MJ, Neary or Tapala's fight to get a true gauge on where he's at. Ideally, Naz, look, I just think he's been out of the ring for quite some time now, or by the time he fights anyway. So I think they just want to get him a good, solid guy, which is why they choose a Mexican. They don't come any tougher than Mexicans, do they? And I'm going to do a little bit more research on Cesar. I think it's Espinoza. I'll have to check that out. I'll do a bit more research on him and sort of give my thoughts. But look, I could probably tell straight away without even seeing him fight exactly what or how he's going to fight. He's going to be tough and hard. He's going to hook hard to the body and to the head. You just know what you're going to get with a Mexican fighter. And I think what they're just going to try and do, Naz, is get him a good, solid guy who's going to give him some rounds. And then maybe they'll step him up with an MJ, Neary or Tapala. Look, he's still ranked pretty high with the organisations. Let me just have a quick look. Naz. So what is he? Super Bantam. So where are we? So he's still ranked number 1 with the IBF. He's ranked, again, not ranked with the WBA. I don't know what it is with the WBA and Aussie fighters. They just don't rank us. I think they've blackballed us like they have with BoxRec have done to them. He's ranked number 3 with the WBC and number 2 with the WBO. So I don't blame him for not wanting to fight those guys now. I mean, he's ranked so high. A title shot could come at any time. Now, whether it's a fight within a way, it doesn't look like it's going to be that way this year because he's pretty much covered. And even at the start of next year, I think what Sam might be doing is just keeping in the mix, and then maybe he'll get a crack at a vacant title if one of the sanctioning bodies strip in a way, or he goes up to featherweight. So I'm not against it. Just get back, get a fight under your belt, keep busy, and then hope things fall your way, because it doesn't look like he's going to get in a way within the next probably 12 to 18 months, does it? If he gets him at all. Still with Naz, it was great to see the patient stalking version of Tim again. Let's just hope his team keep a lid on it. If he gets through Thurman, I wouldn't mind seeing him against an established 154-pounder, i.e. Lubin, Ramos, etc. Well, that's going to happen, Naz. Look, I think from what you can sort of gather with Tim, with his comments yesterday, is that I would think he'll stay at 154 for this year, and then next year he'll go to 160. I think they'll try and get Thurman out of the way, maybe get a Fundora at the end of the year, or who else is there at 154. So I don't. Well, this is the interesting thing because it's not going to be. Excuse me. It's not going to be Murtazaliev. It's not going to be Terence Crawford. If the WBA, not that he's ranked with them, it might change after yesterday, by the way. But at the moment, he's not ranked with the WBA, so that's not going to happen. You wouldn't have thought it'd be the WBC or WBO because Fundora might either fight Virgil Ortiz or Zayas or Spence, Charlo. So who knows? Maybe Tim doesn't even get a shot at a world title this year. And that's why he wants to fight Thurman and maybe look at 160 next year. I'm just thinking of the 160-pound fights, Naz, and I'm just excited about those prospects that I am at 154. To see Tim against a Lara or Janabek or even a Dames, yeah, some tough fights there. Tim versus Janabek. Wow, what a fight that'd be. I know we're all getting ahead of ourselves, but yeah, the 154-pounders, I don't know. If it's Thurman next, he's got probably one more fight at 154. And if he can't get a shot at one of the belts, he's going to move up to 160. So do we even see any of those fights we're all been talking about? Maybe not. And I think I've just answered your question there, Naz. What happens if Xander Zayas gets his Mando and beats Fundora? Does Tim chase Fundora or the belts? I think he chases the belts, Naz. I think he chases the belts, and when he gets the belts, then maybe he gives Fundora another shot. Or maybe he says, you know what? You didn't give me my rematch, so get stuffed. Your victory is always going to be tainted because of the cut head, so maybe he doesn't even need to fight Fundora again, even if he has the belts or not. Of course, if he has the belts, it would be great, but maybe if Tim did have the belts, again, maybe he just doesn't need to fight him, and maybe he just doesn't give him the satisfaction of giving him a shot that Fundora should have given him. So, all right, I think we're at the end of those first few questions. All right, Eminem. Tim's team saying the short list of names at the moment for next opponent are Thurman or Fundora. Personally, I think Fundora should be the priority. Don't quite get the Thurman fight. I know they're talking about Fundora, Eminem, but it's not up to Tim whether he gets Fundora. This is what we've all got to realise. It's one thing to say they want either Thurman or Fundora. Fundora might say, well, what do I want you for, mate? You're not even ranked in either of the organisations, I don't think. Well, what's he got, the WBC and WBO? And again, the rankings might change after his win yesterday, but he's not ranked with the WBC and he's not ranked with the WBO. So why would Fundora want to fight Tim again? Again, that might change after they do the new rankings, but Tim's not going to be in the top 2 or 3 of either of those divisions, you wouldn't have thought. So, or those sanctioning bodies. So how do we know that Fundora even wants the fight? He might just say, well, I'm not fighting Tim. I'm going to fight Zayas, and then I want maybe Ortiz Jr., then I want maybe Murtazaliev, and then I want Bolachuk, then I want Charlo. I mean, I don't like to say it, but Fundora doesn't need Tim. And why would he probably want Tim after what it looked like was going to happen in the first fight? Why would he want to fight Tim if he's got nothing to offer? So I strongly doubt it would be Fundora. And again, it's easy for Tim's team to say, we want Fundora. Well, when does that matter? Fundora is the one that calls all the shots. He's got the belts. He's with PBC. He's their fighter. I know Tim's got his own relationship with PBC, but Fundora's their man. He's the champion. So Tim, unfortunately, I would think the only fight for him that does make sense next is Keith Thurman. Risky fight, but I think he's very beatable. And if he beats Thurman, then all of a sudden, all those elite 154-pounders are all going to start looking at Tim, if they're not already. So, does anyone know the Jai Pataya injury? No, Eminem. I heard through the grapevine it mightn't have necessarily been the injury that caused the change of date. It might have been the actual timing itself, and they just thought it might have worked better a month later as far as all the different things on. I haven't spoken to Mick Francis, so I can't confirm that. But the fact they haven't actually said what the injury is, maybe it was just a scheduling conflict. Or maybe, look, he could have just come back from camp and maybe not been in the exact condition that they wanted him to be in. Maybe he was carrying an extra few kilos or whatever it might have been, and they just decided to put it back a month to give him the best opportunity. Not that he'll probably need much to beat this guy, but a lot of different reasons, Eminem. It's like when, with the football every week. If you need to put something back or pull someone out or whatever, it's always a niggling injury. And don't necessarily have to say what it is. It could be a hamstring for as much as we know. Who knows? Still with Eminem, Cooper O'Connell looks a promising prospect. Keen to see more of him. Yeah, really, really good young kid, Eminem. I actually spoke to his mum today, Shannon O'Connell. And she's actually, if you're on the Gold Coast, by the way, or up near Logan, I think it is, she's actually opening another little fitness studio. She's going to do all PTs and one-on-ones and some mini classes and that sort of stuff. So keep a lookout for that if you're up in Logan in Queensland, around there. She's had a gym in the past. I think she now works out of one of the other gyms up there, but she's going to open up her own little studio. So it won't be a fully fledged gym. It'll be a studio where you can go and either do a one-on-one or do a little session with maybe another 5 or 6 people. So, but yeah, on this, I was really impressed too, Eminem. He's such a really good young kid. And he's a big one. I think he's 140. Yeah, he's going to be good, Eminem. Now, he's not actually signed with no limit yet. If I was them, I'd be signing him up pretty quick because I think he's going to be a little superstar as Cooper O'Connell. He's got the right attitude, trains hard, really fancies himself. I think, look, he could easily stay as an amateur and probably be our best hope at either the Commonwealth Games or Olympic Games. But I've got a feeling after seeing his mum since he's been a toddler be a fighter, I've got a feeling that he wants to be a pro. So look out for Cooper O'Connell. He's going to be a star. Doesn't say much. He probably needs to get a bit of media training, but really good kid. All right, Batman, how are you there, mate? Great performance from Tim. Returned in style and loved the variation in his work. A career high in shots landed in round 4 also. Well, that was what I said before, Batman. It was the one thing I took out of it. He did throw a lot more punches than he normally does. And he didn't load up, which was even more impressive. Just those little, really precise little unders and overs and body, head, different angles. Really liked it, Batman. He didn't load up at all because he has been in the past. Watched the fight with Ocampo and Harrison, even though he had both of those guys rocked. Sort of the chin went up in the air and the hands went down. I really liked yesterday when he had Spence in trouble. He was nice and tight and really picked his shot. So, very, very good performance, Batman. Ali Ulges, is it? How are you, Ali? Tim dominated and really learnt from previous mistakes, took his time and didn't try to walk through him. Fantastic result for Aussie boxing, 100% Ali. What would you suspect roughly Tim earned from the Spencer fight? Good question, Eminem. I wouldn't have a clue, mate. I'm only sort of guessing. I would have thought, I don't know, 1.5, something like that I would have thought. I would have thought Spencer might have been maybe $500,000. I don't know, I'm just guessing. $500,000 US, maybe. Hard to say. I don't know. It's all based on pay-per-views and all this sort of stuff, but you would have thought that yesterday would have had massive numbers because I think everyone would have been very curious to see how Tim Tszyu was going to go. It was heavily promoted as well. We had a really good turnout at our pub, so I'm gathering that all outlets had the same. So I'm only guessing Eminem, but based on some of his previous purses, where he's got sort of 2, 3, whatever it might have been, I would have thought maybe 1.5 for yesterday, and Spencer maybe $500,000 US. But again, I'm just guessing. I'm just trying to do the numbers in my head and everything else and what I thought it would sell, and that's what I reckon anyway. Yeah, good stuff, Batman. Tough times don't last. Tough people do, 100%. I picked Tale Vaha to beat Grush. Grush seemed way too overconfident going in. He did, and I said that myself as bite. I mean, I always thought, well, up to this point, Grush has been a very humble type of guy. Just as they call him, the big bull. This is an honest bloke who likes getting in there and punching on with other guys. That's why I always saw Brendan Grush. And when I saw him at the press conference the other day, I thought, is it just me? That's not the Brendan Grush that I thought this guy was. I was thinking, mate, what did Talivaha say? Don't let the losses get you something, but don't let the wins get to your head, or something along those lines. But whatever he said was spot on. And I just thought Brendan Grush got way ahead of himself, and he paid the price. I mean, he was very humble afterwards, I will say that. He handled himself very well, very respectful. But in the lead up to the fight, I just didn't think he needed to, go off so much. I don't know whether someone was in his ear saying, come on, Brendan, come on, let's really talk this one up. Talivaha wouldn't have a piece of it, though. I thought he handled himself so well in the lead-up, so well during the fight, very composed as well, a lot like Tim. Nice and tight, didn't try and punch on with Grush. He picked his shots, was really patient, and when he had him hurt, he got him out of there. So really impressed with Talivaha. The only issue I've got with Liam Talivaha is that he's only a very small heavyweight. I'm not quite sure what he weighed. I think it was 103. Brendan Grush was 108, but the size difference looked a lot more. And I just have doubts in this day and age. What is 103 kilos? Is about 225 or something like that. 103 times 2.2, 227. So actually, that's quite heavy. That's about the same weight as all the big heavyweights in the past, but he just looks small, I thought, Talivaha. I don't know. Grush has still got some good fights in him. I'd love to see him fight like a Terramona or one of those types of guys. That would be entertaining. Not so sure it'd end too well for Brendan, but at least it'd be a good fight. Maybe Talivaha could fight Terramona, but yeah, good luck with that. How did Cullen Peters go? First round knockout, mate. Pretty easy. Jack Pearce, boxing. Do you honestly think Spencer came to win? Didn't look like it to me. No, I did, Jack. He 100% came to win. I just think the Tim Tszyu that stood in front of him was not the Tim Tszyu that maybe he expected. Maybe he thought he was going to be a little bit easier to hit. Maybe he's going to be a little bit more timid. I just thought Spencer, right from the first round, was very tentative, very cautious, overly cautious. And I just thought he didn't expect to have that Tim Tszyu in front of him who was confident, who meant business, who was a lot tighter than what he was against Murtazalov. I just don't think Spencer was equipped to go with him, Jack. There's no way he didn't come to win, mate. He got here 3 weeks early or over 3 weeks early. You've seen him in the press conferences. You've seen him in all the workouts and everything else. He came to win, mate. He just wasn't good enough. It's as simple as that. Asbot, how much money do you reckon is on the line for Tim if he fights Thurman in Oz? A lot, mate. I would think that fight is going to do big numbers. I think they've done it perfectly with bringing Keith Thurman out. We had the sort of prelim to it in Las Vegas last year before Thurman pulled out. I think everyone, even in the press conferences and everything, got a view of Keith. They're familiar with him, and getting him into Australia to knock out Brock Jarvis was a masterstroke by no limit, because now everyone's talking about this guy from America. You just see him knock out the Aussie, and he's going to fight Tim, and so they've already got the ball rolling. And this is how you do it, guys. This is a good thing from No Limit. It's a storyline. You just don't bring out a guy and promote him up. You got to have the storyline, and they've done it perfectly with Keith Thurman. I think the money on the line. I wouldn't be surprised if Tim got up to $3-4 million for the fight. Maybe Keith Thurman got $1 million American. I would think maybe 1.5. I think it'll do big numbers, Asbot. I think that could be a stadium fight here in Australia. Although they were talking about maybe the Gold Coast, surely it's a bigger fight than putting in a 5,000 seat arena on the Gold Coast. I would think this is a fight could easily draw maybe 10 or 12,000 at a bigger venue. I think Sydney. Where was the fight with Harrison? That was at the Kudos Bank Arena. That was a great venue. I was there for that fight, and it was electric. And I would think Thurman is even bigger than a Tony Harrison fight. Well, actually, I know it's a lot bigger, and I think they would pack that stadium out and probably do twice as many numbers for this fight than they would have for the Harrison fight. So, again, I'm only guessing, Asbot. I'm just doing the numbers in my head. And I think there could be $3 to $4 million on the line for Tim. And as I said, maybe 1.5 for Keith Thurman, American. So, yeah, big stakes there, mate. Ali Uges, Andrei Mikhailovich was extremely disappointing. He kept on leaning forward and was reminiscent of the style he had in the Janabek fight. He's at a career crossroads and needs a new trainer to progress. Yeah, I'm probably with you there, Ali. I've never been a big rap for peach boxing over there with the thongs on. Yeah, he looked terrible, mate. Look, I've said it once and I'll say it again. There's no way he should have been anywhere near a ring with Janabek Alamkanuli in the first place. And I actually take my hat off to him about how well he hung in there, even though I think we all know that maybe Janabek could have pulled the trigger any time and stopped the fight. But he showed a lot of guts, a lot of heart. So hats off to Andre for that. But unfortunately, Ali, we've got to come to the conclusion that, mate, he's just not good enough at that level. I know it sounds harsh and everything and a bit, to the point. But in my opinion, I just don't think he's at the level, Ali. And I think I did pick Blake Wells to win. If you watch my preview, I said that Blake Wells would beat him. just because I just don't rate him that highly. And with all the guts and all that sort of stuff, that's great. But you still got to be able to put it together in the ring. And unfortunately, Ali, I think he's an honest guy. Always comes to fight. Is entertaining, inside and outside the ring. But unfortunately, mate, I just don't think he's good enough. And I actually think what is he? He's 160, isn't he? So I think this guy, I think obviously like a Michael Zarafa, I think would be way too much for him. I think Isaac Hardman would be too much for him. I certainly think Matteo Tapia would be too much for him. I just think he's a fringe type of guy, Ali. Domestic level, I think. Did well to get that world title shot. But, yeah, mate, I think he was just beaten by a better fighter on the day, and maybe he does need to change trainers, mate. I don't know. It's up to him. He's going to have to make that call. Pretty hard to be based in New Zealand and get enough sparring over there and quality of training and that sort of stuff. I mean, Peach Boxing, by all accounts, does a really good job over there with what he does with the fight shows and the gym, and a lot of fighters coming through. But, there's not just levels inside the ring, Ali. There's levels outside the ring. And if you're really serious about it, I think you got to go to the States or even come to Australia. Some great trainers here. Maybe it's a bit of both. But I think being based in New Zealand, it's never going to happen, mate. It's pretty tough. All right, Drew was completely puzzled by certain analysts talking up Spencer's power heading into the fight, considering he had a 57% KO ratio against nondescript opposition. I was with you, Drew. I never thought he was a big puncher at all. The fights I'd seen him, I think he had some knockouts against some pretty inferior opposition, like you said there, and also a 57% KO rate. Yeah, I never bought into that, Drew, and I think I said all along he was just custom made for Tim. Not a big puncher. Okay skill-wise, but certainly nothing that is going to bother Tim. And I just thought he was a perfect guy, and that was justified yesterday because Tim put in a great performance. So, Cal Jane, how are you there, mate? Oh, sorry, Dennis, I missed your super chat there. I'll get to you first. Sorry about that, mate. $5. Thank you very much, mate. Hi, all. Spencer with that right glove across his chest just kept eating Tim's jab, and Tim still comes forward without much head movement. Yeah, I'm with you as far as the head movement, mate. I did say that before. Yeah, he needs to work on a few things. I was really puzzled as well by the stance that Spencer took. It was sort of a Philly shell, but it wasn't. It was a little bit of everything. He sort of fought that way in the past, but it was a really puzzling way he fought, and I just don't think he gave himself a chance, Dennis. I'm not sure whether he was trying to do the peekaboo or the Philly shell or what the hell he was doing, but whatever he tried, it didn't work, mate. So, and again, apologies for not seeing your super chat, mate, and I really appreciate the $5. Thanks very much. All right, Cal Jane, how was the turnout at the pub? And can you please give Sam Nixon a big shout out? He's been punching way above his weight. Cheers. Now, did Sam actually comment before? Did I see him? Sam, where was it? Yeah, he did comment before. It's hard to say, Cal, how many we had there, but we're still working on it, by the way. It wasn't enough, but it was still a really good turnout. We probably had, there would have been, I don't know, 40 or 50 in our lounge, I suppose, that went in there. It's only not a massive lounge, by the way, so it was full. We had maybe another 20 or something in the bar, so not big compared to a lot of other pubs, but for our pub it was really busy. We had a really good trade, and we almost covered the expenses. The amount they charge it is just ridiculous for these fights, by the way, but I think we almost covered the day, which is all I was after to do. So but yeah, we had good numbers, and shout out to Sam. I read his comment out before. Thanks very much, mate. I'm not sure what that means, punching way above your weight, but whatever, mate. Doing great things. Appreciate you tuning in. Batman, Tszyu will smash Thurman to pieces. Well said there, Batman. Eminem says, let's see Brock versus Mazzudia next. Yeah, not a bad fight. I don't think they're going to revisit Nikita, I wouldn't have thought. I think he'll probably move on. I don't think going back over old ground is really, really worth it. And I actually thought yesterday is the best I've seen Cohen Mazzudia fight. I know Dan Hill maybe is a little limited. He's a tough kid, but maybe, it was out of his league, maybe just a little bit. But I thought Mazzudia fought really, really well. And I think those rounds he's been doing with Tim, obviously the fights with Nikita and Wade Ryan and Joel Camilleri and whoever else he's been in with, I think it really held him in good stead. And I was really impressed with him. Again, not getting too carried away because it's Dan Hill, a domestic level fighter. But yeah, I was really impressed. I thought he was probably the most improved fighter on the card yesterday. Eminem, maybe Talivaha was up there as well, but yeah, he fought well, and maybe it could be Brock. There's some other fights for him from Mazudia. Ben Mahoney was the other one he fought as well. So was he 154? Yeah, probably not a lot around that, though, except for maybe Benny Hussein again. But has he fought him before? Or has he? Did they fight once before? Maybe that was Ben and Mahoney, or maybe I'm thinking of. But either way, some good prospects for Mazudia. Not sure where Brock goes, Eminem. I just don't know where he goes, mate. I really don't. He's got to make some hard calls too, Brock. It's one thing getting beat, but he's been rocked and knocked out a couple of times. I don't like to see it, mate. So let's hope he makes the right calls. Get back with Jeff Fennick if he's going to do it, mate, I think. Asbot, personally, I think Tim destroys Thurman. Sorry, I think after 3 or 4 rounds, Thurman just won't have enough to keep Tim off him. I agree, Asbot. I think it might be a little bit longer than 3 or 4. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that fight went the whole 12. I still back Tim to win. I think Tim could get him out of there late. I'm not getting carried away the guys by yesterday. I'm just looking at just the way I see it. And I think Tim would have too much on Thurman. He would put the pressure on. Thurman looked good against Brock Jarvis, but he pretty much did what he wanted to against Brock. He's not going to have that luxury against Tim. I think Tim hunts him down over the journey. And I think he could stop him in 10, 11 rounds, although Thurman is a very, very cagey fighter. But either way, I think Tim wins, mate. Asbot agrees with Dennis. Tim's head movement remains to be seen if he makes that adjustment in front of a better opponent. Yeah, and I think he needs to, Asbot. He can leave himself open, and I said before, he can be open for that counter right hand over his jab, just like his dad Costa was a little bit susceptible to the overhand right as well, or the counter right hand. I think they'll work on it, mate. Again, I just think they just wanted to get past this fight and get a win, and they did that. So now we can move on from here. As they say, Asbot, win this one and look good next time. Although he did look good yesterday too, didn't he? Eminem, Huni beats both Joyce and Hrgovic. I think he's a great chance of beating those guys, Eminem. The big boys, though. I think he definitely beats Joe Joyce. Hrgovic, yeah, that's a tough fight. Who knows? I would love to see Huni get the opportunity against those guys, Eminem, and I think he will. Justice Huni is a very, very good fighter, and I think he's going to do big things in the heavyweight division. Purely, obviously he's a supremely talented young guy, but just the volume of punches that he throws, the pace that he fights at, it's going to be very, very hard for a lot of these big heavyweights to deal with. And that's why guys like Usyk and in the past Michael Spinks and these guys have been so successful that have come up in weight. It's the work rate and the amount of punches they throw that really gives these big boys fits. And that's why I think Huni, if he can stay away from obviously getting nailed, gives these guys all sorts of problems. Andy, to be honest, I seriously doubt Fundora would be next. Remember, he lost time waiting on Spence and now has 2 Mandos due. Yeah, WBC, Virgil Ortiz, and WBO, Xander Zayos. Likely WBC first, in which case Virgil beats Fundora. I've got a feeling, Andy, that it might be actually Zayos first, mate. I think they were talking about that happening. I think Zayos actually got in the ring after the fight with Fundora, Fundora's last fight. And I'm pretty sure, did they have something in the change rooms as well? I would like him to fight Ortiz, though. That is the fight I would like. I think Ortiz beats Fundora. And then maybe just Ortiz look at someone like a Tim Tszyu, because they were going to fight last year, remember? So who knows? Lots of things can happen. One good thing about the 154-pound division, though, is there's so many different things that can happen. Really exciting time for all these guys that are in that division. And especially with Tim, he's also got the 160-pound division he can go to as well. So plenty of options for Tim. They just need to match him right, I reckon, for the next few. And obviously Thurman will be next. And then maybe have a good look after that. I know there might be some opportunities that might come their way, but unlike the Murtazalia fight where I just think, oh, well, it's a title fight, let's go, I think they've really got to pick their mark next after the Thurman fight. If he gets past that, of course, lots of things can happen, but I think he will. And as I said, I think they've just got to be very precise in who they go for. 10 times profits. Joe Joyce will have brain damage in the future for sure. Well, let's hope that's not the case, profits. You just see what was it? They did an interview with him a while back, and you remember he was getting interviewed and he just froze. Mid-sentence, he just froze and just looked off in the distance and didn't say anything. That's not a good sign. Really not a good sign. And I'm sure is he early 30s, mid-30s, whatever it might be. Not great. And look, he took a lot of punishment yesterday as well. Yeah, sometimes some fighters have got to be saved from themselves. And yeah, you really don't want a situation down the track where he's got issues, mate. But yeah, he in my opinion, needs to give it away. Drew Keeley again. Peak for peak, I have Thurman beating Tim. But if Tim can't beat a Twilight Thurman, then I don't think Tim has much chance against the elite champions. Yeah. Well, I suppose we'll never know, Drew. But I'm with you. A peak Thurman, I would probably pick him to beat Tim. But a 36, 37-year-old Thurman is not a peak Thurman. So that's why I give Tim all the chance in the world. I think he beats Thurman. I really do. I don't think Thurman's got the power to keep Tim off him. I know he knocked out Brock, but again, it's Brock Jarvis. This is not Tim Tszyu. So I don't think he's got the power to keep Tim off. And I'm not sure if he's got the legs to keep Tim off because, as I said before, he's a type of guy, and I've spoken about it before. He stands in front of you and makes you fight, but he makes you do all the work. You watch when Tim fights, like Triple G. That's why I compared him to Triple G before. Just in the fact that he stands in front of you and makes you work. He makes you move. He makes you punch. And you watch him. He barely leaves the center of the ring. The center square, it's like a 1.5 by 1.5, or maybe say 2 meters by 2 meter square. Very rarely does he leave that square. He's in and he's out. And he's back to center ring. You put the pressure on you. So watch his opponent. Watch yesterday. Joey Spencer. He's moving left. He's moving right. He's all over the place. He's exerting a lot of energy. Look at Tim Tszyu. Couple of steps forward, couple of steps back. Couple of steps forward, couple of steps back. Meanwhile, Joey Spencer's doing how many laps around the ring? You watch how much work he puts in and how much almost road work that he puts in around the ring compared to Tim. And that's why I have doubts whether Thurman can go with Tim throughout the fight. Thurman will be doing, well, we'll call him a lot of Ks, a lot of kilometres, miles, whatever, in the ring, virtual miles. He'll be doing a lot of moving, and watch Tim. He just cuts the ring off and goes back to center. Cuts the ring off and goes back to center. He'll move front or forward. He'll move back to center. And you watch how much work that Thurman will have to do in that fight. That's why I think Tim wears him down. A 37-year-old Keith Thurman, I'm not sure he can do that much moving in the ring. I don't think he's going to want to trade with Tim. He's going to want to get on his bike, and I'm just not sure he's got the legs at that age, and that's why I think Tim beats him. I hope I explained that properly. Prophet says Sundays for boxing and sometimes UFC if it's a good card. I love the Sunday boxing Prophets, and UFC's on this week. So if you're in the Bendigo area, come down to the pub and check out UFC 314. I think it's Volkanovski. I'm not sure. Is it Lopez? I think he's fighting. I don't know anything about him, but I will have the fight on at our pub if you want to. If you're in the Bendigo region, come on in and have a beer and check out the UFC pay-per-view. It's still with Prophets. Tim Tszyu beat Joey Spencer better than Ramos. Same punches if you watch both fights. Well, that's what I said in my predictions too, Prophets. I actually like, and I said that Tim would probably do to Joey Spencer what Ramos did and just overwhelming. But I'm with you. I thought Tim Tszyu did a better job. Different types of beatdowns, really. I'm surprised, though, that they let Joey Spencer go a lot longer with Ramos than what they did with Tim Tszyu. Maybe they learnt from that fight with Ramos. They didn't want him to take that much punishment because they actually let Ramos really tee off on Joey Spencer, where Tim Tszyu, after maybe, the second or third sort of flurry, it was all over. So, but I'm with you there. Worst case, I think it was on par. Ramos did a number on Spencer as well. He landed some big shot on Spencer. Tim was more an accumulation. I think Ramos landed the harder shots, but Tim just as impressive, mate, for sure. Ali says, disagree with nothing happening in Oz boxing. Sam LeBrun fight night in Melbourne this week. Women's world title fight with Chloe Chaos. Yeah, I'm talking about on the big stage, Ali. I'm not talking about the smaller shows. I know it's a big fight for the women's. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm talking about the big fights on an international stage. So I didn't mean that there was nothing happening in Aussie boxing. Something happening every weekend. It's just, again, the big stuff, mate. So... Nectar of the Gods, absolutely not paying $70 to watch Goodman. Okay, there's one. Yep, Sam LeBrun card Friday night. It looks okay. Yeah, it does. I'll have a quick look at that then. The Sam LeBrun fight. I remember this time last year he did the show in Adelaide for Gather Round for the football. Now who's on that card? Is this Joel Camilleri's fight? Is that the one? Is that this week? I think it is. Always entertaining is Kamakao. So if you're in Melbourne, get to the Melbourne Pavilion because it'll be a ripper card if that is the case. Yes, it's this weekend. All right, let's have a quick look. So Joel Camilleri is fighting is a Bonifaci Segura, so 10-1. Joel Camilleri is 29, 8-1. On the undercard, there is Desi Robinson, 9-3 against Chloe Chaos for the IBF. Nothing about the WBO title, but I did hear someone said it before, but I have heard it as well. It might be for 2 belts. But either way, big fight, big fight. On the undercard, even the other girls, Stephanie Mafongwa, that's her name, against Jessica Messina. That'll be a good fight as well. Victor Nagby, very, very good fighter on the undercard. They're probably the main fights on there, but just those top fights should be good. So that's at the Melbourne Pavilion this Friday night, April 11th. So get down and see that card and support Aussie/Melbourne boxing. All right, Drew says maybe an unpopular opinion, but I actually think the grueling Joyce KO victory over Parker might well have been the cumulative beginning of his end. Maybe, Drew. We often forget about that fight, don't we? That he actually looked super impressive in that fight, knocked Parker out. And now it's Parker who's on the verge of a world title fight, and Joyce is on the scrap heap. So it's amazing how it can turn, isn't it? Asbot. Saavedra is a personification of a tough, durable fighter, a difficult night for anyone, that fella. He is. I still don't know why No Limit have got behind him, though, Asbot. Normally when you invest in a fighter, there's a return on your investment. I'm not sure what the return on investment with No Limit is for Saavedra. They get him a world title fight. They got him on a show here. That's great. But if they put him in a world title fight in Australia, I mean, no one's going to really watch it, are they? Except for the real hardcores. Maybe they're lining him up to fight maybe Michael Zarafa. That's the only thing I can sort of get my head around, is maybe they're looking at a Michael Zarafa fight at some stage. Because I just don't understand. It's great they got behind the fella. Make no mistake about it. But I just don't see the return on investment. But yeah, good fighter, mate. And let's hope he does get that shot, because he's a likeable fella as well. All right, 10 times profits. Melbourne needs more boxing events. Talivaha paying $5.50 for a KO TKO was very good odds, especially the heavyweights. It only takes one good punch. Certainly does, mate. Yeah, Melbourne, it's interesting profits, because when I was promoting, I did my last show at the start of 2020 before COVID. And at the time, there was myself, there was Will Tomlinson, there was Brian Amatruda, there was Team Alice, there was Kings of Combat, did boxing as well. So there's 5, or Peter Maniatis as well. We sort of did it in conjunction with myself and a few of the others. So it was at least 5 promoters, and Pierre Caram, Punisher Promotions. 5, if not 6 promoters in Melbourne. There was and Sam LeBruna as well. So lots of shows all the time. Now, you're right, they have sort of dried up a little bit. I think Team Alice more does the reality boxing now, and that's fine. Lots more money in that than the normal pro shows. Wildfighter, I would say Wildfighter probably with Sam LeBruna, probably the more dominant promoters in Victoria at the moment. Sam LeBruna probably needs to do more shows though. Brian Amatruda has always been probably number 1 in Victoria, but doesn't probably do as many as he used to. But yeah, who knows? But I think Melbourne boxing is still in good hands. But yeah, it's not like it was about 5 or 6 years ago, mate. Used to be some big shows all the time in Melbourne. Almost every second weekend there was something going on, and Brian always had something going on at the Pavilion. You know, the likes of Jade Mitchell and those types of guys drawing massive crowds. We had the Maloney boys and the Ballas, and always big stuff, mate. But I'm sure it'll come back. Everything goes in cycles. Andy, early days, but Callum Peters shows good promise, in my opinion. We'll enjoy watching him climb. Yeah, good fighter, mate. Asbot, the worry for Tim McGreen to a Thurman fight is if Thurman gets injured. Imagine that scenario again. Yeah, that's always the worry, Asbot. He did get through the training camp for Brock Jarvis. I would think this time, Asbot, they would probably put someone on the undercard that if he does pull out, they've got someone credible to go straight in. They didn't really have that, or maybe they did have that in Vegas, but when Thurman pulled out the first time, they went for Fundora. Maybe in hindsight, they could have chosen a Boachok instead, even though it would have been just as risky. They had Mendoza, of course, he'd just beaten. Who else was on that card? But Boachok would have been probably the more natural fit. But they chose to go with Fundora, and obviously it didn't end well. But I'm sure on this card, on this occasion, they'll have someone on the undercard. If Thurman's out, they can slow him straight in, who's very similar to Thurman's style, so they don't have to just try and start from scratch on short notice. What's that? I gave him $1. Was impressed by the patience and power of young O'Connell. Yeah, he's a good one there, mate. He'll be good. Batman says Tszyu will beat Thurman with ease, in my opinion. Asbot agrees. Yeah, I tend to agree, Batman. I don't think it'll be easy, but I think he wins conclusively. Surely No Limit says Eminem will have a backup plan if the Thurman fight happens in case Keith does himself a mischief. Yep, that's right. Batman says Tim isn't moving his head on a swivel, but the art doing little is mastery in the Russian boxing system. Look at Better Beav, makes you miss by inches while on the front foot. Tim's ability to place a opponent on the ropes is superb to watch. Definitely a mix between his dad and Triple G. Yeah, I agree, mate. Yeah, and you're right. You don't necessarily have to do all the slips and weaves and all that sort of stuff. A little subtle slip to the left or a subtle slip to the right is all it takes sometimes. And the Russians do train that style, Batman. You're right, 100%. Kane says Triple G was a beast. Certainly was, mate. Certainly was. Steve Collins says the other guy was nothing really. That's the problem. Can only beat who they put in front of you, though, Steve. I mean, a lot of people talked Joey Spencer up. A lot of people gave him a shot. Now, I must admit, I'd seen a lot of Joey Spencer, so I didn't fall into that trap. But I expected a lot better performance from him in this fight. Now, that's obviously a credit to Tim, because Tim got in there and just broke down everything that he did and got him out of there like a good fighter does. So I gave him $1. Says Tim has adjusted his left hook. I think he's not leaning over so much, and the right hand is covering his face more. That's one thing they have worked on, haven't they? You could definitely see that. All right. Nectar of the Gods. Nectar of the Gods. Don't listen to Glenn Jennings. He's a money man. He would send him to slaughter for enough money. I don't agree with that, Nectar. I mean, he loves Tim like a son, mate. Just like he did Costa. I don't subscribe to that. Look, he's a manager. Yes, his job is to make money for the fighter and also for himself. Obviously, that's what he's in it for. It's a job. But Glenn doesn't need to do this for the money, mate. He's pretty well off, I assure you. He does it for the love of it. He loves being involved with Tim. As I said, loves him like a son. And I don't subscribe to he'd set him to the slaughter for enough money, mate. I don't buy that for a second. All right, Drew, even if Tszyu doesn't win a world championship again, even though I hope he does, I do feel he's gained a humble and focused mindset after Murtazalia of disaster. Well, sometimes that's what it takes, Drew. And I think Tim himself, in one way or another, has sort of admitted that he got ahead of himself before the Murtazalia fight. Remember, they were talking about moving the operation to Vegas and living in Vegas and pretty much taking over Vegas and fighting all these stars. And I just think he forgot that there was going to be another very good fighter in the opposite corner, paid the price. But I was impressed, Drew, after the fight, how well Tim spoke. I really was. I think he's learned from it. And that reflected in the ring as well. The way he fought, he was, I said before, he was tight, he was composed, and fought a perfect fight. So, Glenn, everyone is talking about Tim's lack of head movement. That's not how freedom by foot pressure fighters work. High guard, catch and counter, using your feet to get in position. Good call, Glenn. And whoever said it before about Russian fighters as well. Good point. Really, really good point. That not everyone has to slip and weave and move their head a lot. The Russian fighters just also tend to have a high guard and obviously use the gloves and elbows and all that sort of stuff to block punches as well. As long as he's not getting hit on the chin, that's obviously all that matters. G'day, Shane. How are you there, mate? Haven't seen you for a while. I'm sure you've been in the chat, but welcome to the show, mate. Batman. Fighters wear their defeats sometimes. Tim was oozing with confidence after the fight. Great mentality to have. Doesn't seem to be affected by the last year. He jumped straight on him. I remember it, yep. Certainly did, mate. And fighters, they're definitely confidence type of beings. That's what they operate on, and that's why I think it was so much of a relief after yesterday's fight for everyone, not just Tim, but his whole team. His wife, obviously his brother, his mum, his sister, his manager, his trainer, everyone concerned, his promoters even. And I think it was just a huge weight off their shoulders. But it was great to see him just have that sparkle in his eye again there, Batman. Yes, we did, Naz. We got a good turnout, mate. It was good. Batman took Groves years to throw with confidence after the Froch rematch, and it also took AJ a year or so. Tim was right back, yeah. I agree, mate. And will AJ do it again is another question, isn't it? I'm not sure he can come back from the Dubai one, mate, but we will see. Did I skip a few? Did I? I didn't think so. Cal Jane. I'm pretty sure I got everyone. I'll quickly go back and have a look. Anyway, I think I've got it all. Anyway, well, if I've missed you, I apologise, guys. Put your question in there again. All right. Glenn and Guide Spencer offered nothing. His was unbelievably ordinary. It was, mate. I was staggered by how ordinary he looked. And again, it doesn't stress me at all. I'm not going to criticise Tim about it. He did what he had to do. And again, I'll say it. He was the perfect opponent for Tim Tszyu at this stage. He needed a live body. Joey Spencer was very well regarded, but he wasn't a big puncher. Not overly, I don't think overly skilled, but was capable enough. And I think he was the exact opponent that Tim needed. And that was obviously reflected in his performance. And I'm not going to criticise anyone for getting Joey Spencer in. I think he'd be disappointed as well. But again, I just think he was the exact opponent that Tim needed. Kane says Spencer was more than happy to get the hell out of there. I think he was, Kane. I think the punches he was taking, there was no protest. I think he did look at his dad at one stage, but he'd trust his dad. He would trust his judgment. He would have been disappointed, but I don't think, especially if he watched the fight back, I don't think there'll be any arguments. Maybe he might say to his dad, hey, look, you could at least give me, another round or something like that. I'm not sure how long there was to go in the round. I'm pretty sure there might only have been 30 seconds or whatever. But look, his dad did what he had to do, and I'm sure in hindsight, Joey Spencer will thank his dad for doing what he did. Yes, this is a good call, this one. Al, has anyone heard from Spencer afterwards? Not one interview. No, he jumped straight out of the ring. We've heard nothing, as far as I know. I didn't see anyone get an interview with him. I know he would have been disappointed, but I would hope that he would do something before he goes. Unless he was on a plane today, I don't know. But I'd be disappointed in Joey Spencer and probably lose a bit of respect for him if he didn't say something. Plenty of reporters afterwards waiting for a word. I understand he's disappointed. He wanted to get out of there. But maybe once it all sort of the dust had settled, maybe he should have taken a breath, got a drink of water or something, gone to the press conference and answered a few questions because, I just think it's the right thing to do. G'day, pound for pound king. How are you, mate? Mutsy, I watched it live and thought the stoppage was premature. Also, after watching the replay on TV, though, I think it was warranted. Okay, yeah, I haven't watched the replay yet, Mutsy, so maybe you're right there, mate. Mel, how are you, Mel? Thanks for the comment, mate. Totally agree that he's open for the right hook. That's something I'm sure they'll work on. So impressed with the Tszyu camp. Yes, that's for sure, mate. Yes, Batman. We know where you stand. Tim won't lose to Thurman. Yeah, I'm with you. Batman also says Virgil will stop Fundora. I tend to agree there. Batman. Shadow Boxer, what do you got there, mate? Like I said last week, I felt like people were jumping the gun about Tim's losses. Fundora fight was extremely bad luck, and Tim was landing early. And Murtazalia fight, he got called early. Yeah, I don't think anyone sort of argued about that, Shadow Boxer. My concerns is whether he could come back. Mentally, it would have been a massive hurdle for him, and obviously he has, which is awesome. That was my biggest concern with Tim Shutterbox. It was not necessarily losing his ability. It was whether he could come back after that bad knockout. And hopefully yesterday's fight has instilled him with a little bit of confidence and he can get back to at least where he was. I'll say it again. I don't think he's back at the elite level, like the top 2 or 3 in the division. Not yet. But at least he's back to where he was before he lost the belt and lost to Murtazalia. And that's all he needs to be. And then he can leapfrog from there. Jules, evening all. That was the Tim we know. However, as good as Tim was, can't ignore some of the mistakes made by his team in the past. Are we sure he can still go forward with the team he has? That's the question, Jules. That's what I said earlier. When you win, no one looks at the deficiencies. Everyone just pats you on the back and says, well done. When you lose, of course, the magnifying glasses come out in full force. We won't know until he's in another big fight like that, I don't think, Jules. But we can't ignore the facts last year with what happened in the corner with Fundora. The fight should have been stopped. And then with Murtazalia, the fight should have been probably stopped even after the second round, if not after the first knockdown in the third, and they didn't do it. And I'll say again, Igor should have had the towel in his hand and been the one to throw in the towel. Only a small thing, but there were some mistakes made. And even taking the Murtazalia fight in the first place mightn't have been the smartest thing, although everything's great in hindsight, isn't it? But we will see, Jules. Maybe it's going to be the Thurman fight Maybe it'll be Fundora again. Maybe it'll be Charlo. Maybe it'll be whoever. But at some stage, we're going to see exactly what Tim Tszyu have got, mate. So let's hope they learn from their mistakes, just like Tim has, and we never see those mistakes again. Steve Collins says, change trainer now. Shadowboxer says, Tim won't ever change teams. I tend to agree. Jules, thinking about Saavedra, apparently ranked 2 with WBO following the win. Could this be a ploy by No Limit to take a Tapia rematch, but for elimination / interim / full title? Will Janabek move up? Very good call there, Jules. So at the moment, I know it hasn't been reflected yet, but at middleweight, is he ranked? Oh, no, he was ranked number 5, so he's now going to be ranked number 2. So the number 1 ranked fighter at middleweight is Denzel Bentley. That would be a good fight. Is he ranked by anyone else? I'm sure he'll improve. No, he's not. Oh, he's ranked number 12 by the IBF, which is another Janabek belt. So who knows how far he'll go. Isn't it interesting? Even after what happened to Andrei Mikhailovich against Janabek, he's still ranked, or was ranked, number 8 by the IBF. Obviously, he's pretty well regarded by the IBF, is Andrei Mikhailovich. But yeah, good call, Jules. It makes all the sense in the world. Where's Matteo Tapia? He's not even ranked by the WBO, though. Michael Zarafa is actually ranked number 11. Hang on, I take that back. They've got it. Caesar Matteo Tapia, ranked number 9 with the WBO. Could be the case, Jules. But maybe that's what they see in him. Maybe they think he can get a world title shot. So whether it's Tapia, whether it's Zarafa, great fights. Would Tapia really want another piece of Saavedra? I'm not sure. I thought he did more than enough to win the first fight, Saavedra. All right, Drew, lots of victories and obstacles and moving parts to overcome before Tim ever gets a shot at Murtazaliev ever again, but I would have liked to hear him mention his desire for him again. I'm not too stressed about it, Drew. Maybe in a year's time we're sitting here and he's beaten Thurman. He's beaten... Who else have we got there? Maybe another year he's had another 3 fights. So he's had Thurman. Maybe he's fought a Bolchuk or maybe a Fundora. Who knows? But maybe one of those guys. And he's sitting there with a belt, about to move up to the middleweight division, and he's feeling good about himself. Then he might say, "Okay, I'm ready for the Murtazaliev fight." But as I said earlier, there's absolutely no reason why Tim wants a piece of Murtazaliev at the moment. It makes no sense. Obviously, massive risk and no reward. I don't think they're going to sanction the fight anyway, but I just think in another year's time, it'll be Tim calling the shots again, and it'll be up to him whether he fights Murtazaliev, because, again, he hasn't got a lot of options. So you're probably right. He probably could have said, we wouldn't mind fighting him down the track, but, again, I don't think he needs Murtazaliev, as funny as that sounds. I've said it before, but I do feel Tim would beat him in a rematch. Murtazaliev or Fundora. Arguable, Batman. I think Fundora definitely is a chance. No, I'm not going to say he would definitely beat Fundora, by the way. I know it's easy to say, well, he lit him up in the first 2 rounds last time, so it was only going to go away one way. Guys, it's a 12-round world title fight, and Fundora has shown he's very durable, does tend to get going as the rounds go on. I'm not going to say with any confidence at all that Tim would have beat Fundora, because we'll never know. Murtazaliev, I think it's a bold statement to say he'd beat him in a rematch, Batman, considering what happened. Let's hope that's the case, but I'm not going to go that far, mate. I would definitely give him obviously a shot of beating Fundora, but at this stage, I don't think anyone could say with confidence that he'd beat Murtazaliev in a rematch. He'd learn a lot, and who knows? But we just didn't see enough in the first fight to say that he'd have a chance. Boxing is on the night. Look at how many rematches look nothing like the first fight. Yeah, well, we saw it yesterday, Batman. Liam Talivaha knocked out Brendan Grush after getting knocked out cold in the first fight in the second round. And he put Grush out of commission in, 5 rounds yesterday. So, look, if Talivaha can do it, then maybe Tim can do it, but we'll see. Drew, people forget Tim started taking boxing seriously at 15, which is quite late if you have elite dreams. He's still done particularly well considering the late start. Yeah, he has, yep. Usyk started at 15, says Shadow Boxer. Ali says, Big J, agree with you on this. No Limit should have had a female fight on the card. No Limit pushed Glenn Jennings fighters mostly, hence not many other females. My view, No Limit should sign Sugar next. Yeah, she's still signed with Lou DiBella, though, I think, Ali. If anything, I'll tell you my opinion. I think No Limit, They've got Shannon O'Connell. They should be pushing for a Shannon O'Connell Sugar Neeks rematch. That's what they should be pushing for, is for those girls to get it on again. Shannon O'Connell beat Sugar Neeks Johnson, and it was Sugar Neeks, or Shanika we'll call it. Shanika was the one that actually got the world title fight, even though she was coming off a loss to Shannon O'Connell. So I don't know how all that works, but get your head around that. And one thing I will say, this is what I reckon what No Limit should be pushing for now, and that is shotgun Shannon O'Connell against Sky Nicholson, even above Shanika Johnson. You might say, oh, well, what has Shotgun done to deserve a fight with Sky Nicholson? Well, look at where they are at the moment. Shannon O'Connell knows she had the bad loss to Ebony Bridges, but she's come back and she's beaten Jazzy Parr in the last fight in a very impressive performance to go high in the rankings again. Sky Nicholson coming off the loss. Where does she go to now? I know there might be the rematch with Tiara Brown, but what a great fight that would be. A real grudge match. These girls have got a history. If you remember when Ebony Bridges beat Shannon O'Connell, Sky Nicholson was at ringside having a bit to say, and Shotgun gave her the finger and told her where to go. It's a great grudge fight. I think this is the fight that No Limit, if they're looking to get a fight for Shannon O'Connell, Sky Nicholson on a big card, maybe it's the Thurman Tszyu card in July. I think that makes all the sense in the world. Now, I know Sky Nicholson's with Matchroom / is it just Matchroom? I think it is, yeah. Why can't they work in with No Limit and put Sky Nicholson on a No Limit card with Shannon O'Connell and a big fight? As I said, Thurman and Tszyu would be the card I'd put it on. What are your thoughts, guys? I think it'll be a ripper grudge fight. These guys, girls, have had a grudge for a lot of years, been a lot of bad blood. Let's get it on now. And what else has Sky Nicholson got at the moment? She's lost a world title. What better fight for her to fight on a big card against another Aussie in a massive all-female fight? I think it'd be great. That's just my 2 cents anyway. All right, we'll move on. Toby Bartlett, how are you, Toby? Salute from the UK. Thanks for tuning in, mate. Glad I caught another Boxing Deep Dive live again. No worries at all, Toby. Thanks very much, mate. I'm not quite sure what time it is over there, but thanks for tuning in, mate. Very much appreciated. Batman, we heard you the first 7 times. Tim will absolutely destroy Thurman. I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. All right, Jules. We've missed Tim over the last years. Last 2 fights didn't let him show anything from the US camps. Did he look improved from Mendoza? What do you think he still needs to eliminate from his game? What does he need to eliminate? As I said before, Jules, I still think he's vulnerable to the overhand counter right. But I'm just picking here, mate. I just think he looked super impressive yesterday. I just probably still think he needs to tighten his defense just a little bit, more so on the counter rather than on the attack. And apart from that, just get a few more rounds under his belt and up the quality of opposition. And then we'll see what he's got and keep that chin down. Daniel Smart, how are you, mate? Great to have you on the show. Amazing how opinions switch swiftly. According to mainstream media, pundits, Tim is now a world beater again, yeah. Let's just remember he beat someone who wasn't rated inside the top 50 context. Very good point, Daniel. This is the thing we've always got to consider, guys. Always look at the other side of the argument. And we're not having a crack at Tim here, but like I said before with Keith Thurman, let's not get too excited. He beat Brock Jarvis, okay? And as good as Tim looked yesterday, let's not forget also that, yeah, it's Joey Spencer wasn't rated in the top 50. So, but again, I'll say it. Tim beat the guy in front of him and did a fantastic job, and it's just the first step of many to get to where he wants to get to, and that's all he had to do. But very, very good point there, Daniel. Lynden, the debate show you spoke about recently would also be great content if you get different people who are Aussie boxing royalties, such as Billy Dibb, Jeff Fennick, Will Tomlinson, etc. Yeah, it would be good, Ali. It's a matter of trying to get them all in the same room, and if you didn't, or on the same stream, if you didn't see it last week, we did Fight Week, and we'll do it for every big fight. We'll do it for Canelo and Skull in a couple of weeks' time. So look out for that one, that card in Saudi Arabia. And I think Jay McAllister and Big J had a really, really good discussion, if you want to call it that, about Tim Tszyu's credentials. And I come up with the idea of maybe having a show where we pick a subject and we have one side on each side, sort of one person on each side giving their points, and you guys can maybe vote on who wins the debate. So we'll look at it. Easier said than done getting all those guys on, Ali. We've actually had all those 3 guys on here at different points throughout our broadcast, but again, it's just trying to get them together and get in the concept. But we'll see what we can do. All right, Batman 122 is full of guys waiting for Inouye to move up so they can fight for a vacant belt. Never hear mention of Goodman, Tapalas, MJ, etc. willing to fight each other. Obviously, MJ and Tapalas did fight years ago. He did, yeah. And Tapalas beat MJ, as we know. Yeah, just play the waiting game, Batman, and just wait your turn. It'll come. All those belts will be available at some stage. Love the chat, says Steve. No worries, mate. Love Neil. Good stuff, mate. He's a good little fella. He's got a good heart. All right, Daniel. Anyhow, on a more positive note, says Daniel, the debut of young Cooper O'Connell was a really promising one. Looked mature beyond his years. Great prospect. Certainly is, mate. 100%. Batman, maybe the Tszyu team finally give Liam Smith that beating. I've spoke of that for a while. I think he stops Liam Smith very, very easily, Batman. I think Liam Smith is way past his best. And I think, again, his style is custom-made for Tim. And I think Tim stops him in 4 or 5 rounds. What's this, Jules? Gentlemen, it's a great day when Lynden is talking about potential Tim versus Sunderbeck fight. Soak it up. It'd be great, mate, wouldn't it? All right, Naz, probably won't happen, but would be a good launch into 168 if Tim throws his hat in the ring for the No Limit middleweight series. They're talking. Is it super middleweight or just middleweight? The series they're talking about. There's no way he's going to do that, Naz. He's got his eyes on the prize, mate. He doesn't want to fight a domestic level tournament, I can tell you. Naz, where is it? Batman. Tim versus Smith, 20,000 at the Coop in Manchester. Big event, but in all seriousness, after he beats Thurman, maybe Zarafa finally gets the payday. I know Tim says never, but if the man is big enough, not going to happen, Batman. I think the only way the Zarafa fight happens is if maybe Tim doesn't get to where he wants to get to with those big fights. I think Zarafa is pretty much a bit of a safety net for a payday to finish up. Look, if he beats Thurman, mate, why would he be looking at Michael Zarafa when he's got all those big fights in front of him, either at 154 or 160? I think Zarafa is firmly in the rearview mirror, mate. And I do believe Tim when he says he'll never fight Zarafa. So you never know. We'll see. Yeah, still a big fight in Australia, mate. And a lot of people in Australia want to watch it. And no doubt, probably does the biggest numbers out of all those fights that Tim could have. But I think at this stage, Tim is not looking at the monetary side. He's looking at his legacy and belts and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure over the journey, he'll make a lot more money out of those other fights than what he would with a Zarafa fight. A one-off Zarafa fight would be great. I know that. Big money for both guys. But I just don't think Tim is looking at the domestic level at this stage. He's looking firmly ahead, and who would blame him? And Daniel says not sure of any more Batman that fight. Yeah, I agree. Jules, Fondora said recently he's open to a rematch, but he said that previously. In my opinion, Thurman fight much more intriguing than it was last year. Roll Thurman, get paid, proper tune-up, move on. I agree, Jules, and I think that's the way it'll go. What's that, Mr. Serioso? What about the gentleman's handshake? No such thing in boxing, Mr. Serioso. It's all about the coin, mate. Not about handshakes or gentleman's handshake. There's not many gentlemen in boxing anyway, mate, and certainly none that are going to honour their word, I wouldn't have thought. Ali says, don't think Tszyu fights Zarafa anymore. I think that ship has sailed for the time being. Yeah, I think so. And you've got to remember too, Michael Zarafa is 33 years of age now. And I don't think that's a fight that Tim would look at for at least a couple of years. So he's 35 years old. I don't know. I just think, I think it might be one of those big fights that just never happen. You never know. It could happen. I just don't think it will. Again, why would it? Tim's got Thurman in July, it looks like. If he wins that, he'll be probably back over to the States at the end of the year. Then he'll be looking at world title fights in 2026. I mean, you never know, but I just strongly doubt it. Al says, a great move, Jai. Fighting on a random Tuesday night made no sense. Yeah, well, this one's on King's birthday, Sunday night, so the night before the public holiday, so a lot better move. A lot of people up there for the school holidays and everything, so I'm sure they'll get a big crowd. What's that? Why did you go and bring up the football? Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about football at the moment, Eminem. We are 0-4, the Blue Boys, and going downwards very, very quickly. All right, Naz, it would be great to see Terramoni get a shot at Jalalev in the pros. I reckon, what is it, Jalalov? I always pronounce that wrong. I reckon he would make amends for the Olympic defeat. Well, the pros are a different ballgame, aren't they, Naz? I don't think so at this stage. I think Terramoni needs another 5 or 6 fights before he goes. Although Jalalov is getting on a little bit, But I think potentially, yes, he will avenge that Olympic defeat, but not yet. I think give him another maybe year and a half, I would think. Jules, Reno limits plans for a 160 tournament. I'll throw up 8 names and you tell me if there's a potential matchup possible. Nikita, Tapia, Zarafa, Harman, Biggs, Mikhailovic, Jarvis, and Leak. Yeah, no. I still doubt it's going to happen. Why would someone like Tapia or Zarafa fight a Brock Jarvis or a Leak? It just doesn't make sense. It's just massive steps backwards. Jarvis, yeah, he's been knocked out by Thurman, makes no sense. Mikhailovic has just lost to Wells. Zarafa's already beaten Hardman. Nikita's already beaten Biggs conclusively. Tapia, I think, beats them all. It just doesn't make any sense. Possible matchups out of all of them. If anything, could it be probably a Hardman versus a Biggs or a Mikhailovic or a Jarvis? And then you could throw in any of the Biggs, Mikhailovic, Jarvis, and Leak against each other. Probably those final 5 guys you mentioned there could fight each other, no dramas. Probably you could throw Mazzudia in there, maybe Kamakeo in there as well. But those first 3, Nikita, Tapia, and Zarafa, I don't think they're coming back down to fight those other, or the bottom 5 you've mentioned there. James Brown, I think Spencer was pretty underwhelming and there was a lack of head movement from Tim. I'm not convinced. Yep, jury's out. Jules, I've heard Talivaha speak about dropping to Bridger. How would he go against a Pedro or Terziewski? Very good, I reckon. He's got some talent, Talivaha. I think he's a good boxer. I was really impressed with him yesterday. I think he could have a good shot of beating both those guys for sure. Honest opinion on Tim versus Keith. I think Tim Tszyu wins conclusively, Ryan. I think by clear-cut decision, I'm going to say. Batman says, agreed. The build-up for Tim versus Thurman has gone perfectly. No doubt it's next. Yeah, for sure. Mr. Serioso, Perth Arena, sell out in minutes. Certainly would, mate. Well, they come to the party with the money. I think it could happen. You never know. They put Kambosos and Lomachenko there, so why not Tszyu and Thurman? I think it's going to be on the Gold Coast by all accounts. But again, why put it in a 5,000-seat arena when you can put it in a 15,000-seat arena? Or I'm not sure what Perth has. It was like 20,000. Either way, they'll sell it out. No limit. We'll charge $150 for this. Yeah, well, you never know, mate. Dean Joseph. Hey, Dean. Welcome to the show, mate. If you don't know Dean, he used to work with D&L back in the day and worked for Dean Lonigan in all those big shows. I hope you're doing well there, mate. Love the show, Walking Boxing as well. Maybe Bendigo again for Thurman versus Tszyu. Yeah, you never know, mate. I doubt it, mate. It's a 5,000-seat arena. I'm not sure they could come up with a coin for that one, Dean, but you never know. I think it's destined for one of those bigger shows, mate. But I hope you're doing well too, mate. Great to hear from you. Shutterbox, anyone heard from Spencer? Has he given any interviews post-fight? Not that I've seen, mate. Paul, I thought Andre won 4-2 or a draw at best, but either way, he was disappointing. Agree, a new trainer is needed. Yeah, I thought it might have been a draw, but I think it was a lot of close rounds in there, Paul. But either way, I don't think it was a great performance from Andre, put it that way. Naz, a bit of change of subject here. Is Stanionis any chance to beat Boots this weekend? No, I don't think so. He's not a bad fighter, Stanionis, but I think Boots wins that clearly on points. Jack, how do you see Thurman versus Tszyu? I'm a bit iffy on it. Thurman is light years better technically, but at 36 and being small, just hard to see him having the physicality. Yep. Again, I'll say that I think Tim wins by clear-cut points decision. I got Boots, to be honest, but good luck to Stanionis if he can cause an upset. Quality unification. Hope Norman Jr. versus Barrios happens ASAP, so we might get a 2-belt versus 2-belt undisputed at 147. Yeah, be a good fight, Norman and Barrios. I'd probably back Norman in that one. Naz, good call, Andy. Some good youngsters on the undercard too. Amari Jones and Zaquin Moses both look exciting. I didn't see that card, sorry guys, so I can't comment. Ryan, answered the question. All good. Does Shotgun have any fights coming up? As I said, Eminem, why not Sky Nicholson? The big female grudge fight, or Shanika Johnson. Why not? She's already beaten Shanika. Surely Shanika be thinking, I've got the belt, but I haven't beaten Shotgun. Shannon would be up for that fight in 2 seconds flat. I know she's with DeBella is Shanika, but doesn't it make sense on these big Aussie cards to have big Aussie female fights as well? They don't come much bigger than I think Shannon versus either of those two girls. I'd prefer Shannon versus Sky Nicholson. I reckon it'd be a ripper. I was waiting for this one. Why do they get Jonathan Brown from the AFL, Peter Bedell, to give these terrible opinions and analysis with such confidence? Why get Ted Kofi back? Or Barry Michael or someone, Jack, I'm with you, mate. I'm a massive fan of Jonathan Brown, but he's an AFL player and doesn't know anything about these guys, except no more than the average fight fan out there. Peter Bedell, he gets paid to be a reporter. I don't think he delves into the game at all. I don't think he really knows what he's talking about. I think he just parrots a lot of stuff that he reads and hears himself from other actual boxing journalists. Not that there's many good ones out there anymore, by the way. But I'm with you, mate. They could do so much better. Hey, in a fight of that magnitude, let's roll Jeff Fennick back out, Barry Michael, these types of guys. There's Ted Kofi, as you said, plenty of good guys out there, and they persist in an AFL player and a reporter who, in my opinion, knows nothing about boxing. I think they can do much, much better. I think we need to get old mate Big J on there, or Tazzy Brown or someone. They'll tell it the way it is. Eminem can't stand Peter Bedell. Yeah, he's just anyway. I won't comment. All right, Jack. Patient clinical Tszyu beats Thurman handedly. I rate Thurman, but he has a hook dominant style, and and Tszyu is utilising his jab and no tail piston right hand. I believe he gets to Keith easily. Yeah, I agree, mate. Dennis says the rehydration clause Tim mentioned, is it mandated by the federations or something the promoters agree upon in the contract? World title fights for the IBF, Dennis. There's a 10-pound rehydration clause, mate. So in that fight with Bakram Murtazalov on the day of the day of the fight, both fighters had to have been within 10 pounds. So it's at about 4.5 kilos. Still a fair bit of weight you can put on, but when Tim said he puts on 10 when he's allowed to, less than half of that he was allowed to put on in the Bakram Murtazalov fight. Now again, I don't think it would have made much difference, but sometimes mentally it can make a huge difference. If you've got a fighter that's happy and hydrated and full and feeling good about himself, maybe they go into the ring a lot better mentally. If you go in there and you're a little bit, off put by having to make weight of the day of the fight as well, it can maybe affect you mentally. Again, I think the cause of that loss was more the left hook rather than the rehydration clause, but that's the way it works, Dennis. All federations are different, but the IBF in-world title fights make you weigh no more than 10 pounds on fight day, which I don't agree with. I think once you make the weight, it should just be a free-for-all. Sorry. Oh, he's 39 M&Ms, Joe Joyce. There you go. Daniel says he thinks the Fundora fight is easier than the Thurman fight for Tim. Yeah, I think they're on a par there, Daniel. I think Shannon O'Connell's Facebook has been hacked. Geez, all right. What's it say? I'll better check a little bit later. I only spoke to her today, so let's hope not. Saw on BoxRec earlier, Kamiko is scheduled for a fight in February 2026. Yeah, I did see that. Where is he? Joel Camilleri. There you go. Get in early because Kamiko is scheduled for February 28th for his next fight. Where is it? It's actually in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is that fight on the 28th of February 2026. I'm not sure what's happening there, but Kamiko, if you're in the chat, let us know. We haven't talked about this one. Dana Coolwell should be proud of his efforts. Had a crack against Tszyu and tough again in defeat yesterday against Chop Chop. From Tszyu to Chop Chop. I'll mention that in Walking Boxing tomorrow. I did see the highlights of that as well. I might try and watch the fight in its entirety tonight. But look, full credit to Dana Coolwell. Going over there, trying to get it done on the big stage. Hats off to Dana Coolwell. And there's no shame in losing if you're actually trying to beat some of the top guys along the way. So well done, Dana Coolwell. Yeah, Camilleri is opening a gym in the Melbourne Western Suburbs. I saw that. He's a good man, Kamiko. Really, really good character. Where are we? Have I got? I know I've got a couple of comments there. Damien, I'd like to see Tim versus Virgil Ortiz. Action Plus, do you think Tim's team would allow it or too dangerous? At the moment, too dangerous, Damien. I think get past, I think all bets are off until after Keith Thurman. If he gets past Keith Thurman, I would say, all right, I'll be open to the Virgil Ortiz fight. If he wins impressively, and I think he will, but I'd be open to it then. I think Tim is capable of beating Virgil Ortiz. If I had to make a tip right here and now, I'm still saying Virgil Ortiz gets the job done. But I think Tim is capable. It's just a matter of when he fights him. If he gets past Thurman impressively, again, I'm open to that fight with Virgil Ortiz. I know they'll be gunning for Fundora or maybe Charlo, one of these types of guys, but Virgil Ortiz would be a good fight, especially if maybe by some way it happens that Virgil Ortiz gets his hand on a belt. So 10 times profits doesn't agree. Oh, no, you do agree. Would be a good fight. Ortiz is a beast. Sorry, I thought you said he should stay away from him. Eminem, Camille Balla was supposed to be on the Labruna card versus Creative. It seems to be gone from BoxRec. I did see that, Eminem. I'm not sure what happened there, mate. Maybe there was an injury there or something like that. John, Tim should stay away from Virgil Ortiz and Bolachuk. Yeah, for the time being, John. Bolachuk could be an interesting one. I reckon that's a fight that Tim could win as well, but just not yet. I think the media and a lot of fans have just got way ahead of themselves now, and Tim's back, and maybe he is, but for me, and I've said it right from the get-go, the jury's still out for me. Get past Thurman, and then go from there. Whether you think, we think he's ready to fight an Ortiz or Bolachuk, that's great, but the timing has to be right, because those guys are dangerous fighters, and Ramos Jr. is the same. So very, very risky fights, and the timing has to be right for Tim. They can't rush him, or we're going to see a repeat of Murtazaliev. Jack, Peters versus Rushton so early. Why? Great fight, but let it cook for a while. Dangerous fight for both. Rushton can punch, and Peters likes to walk up. Yeah, I'm a little bit perplexed about this as well, Jack. If you didn't know, this is Callum Peters and Kira Rushton looking at July on a No Limit on Fox event. Yeah, I'm with you there, Jack. I don't know why they would look at it now, especially Callum had 2 fights. Maybe he'll have another, maybe 1 or maybe even 2 fights before then. Kira Rushton might have 1. Yeah, I'm with you, mate. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Should let it cook for a while, or simmer, whatever you want to call it. Mr. Serioso, that bloody cut. Tim would have dropped Fundora. We will never know, Mr. Serioso. I can't agree with you, because we won't ever find out, will we? Unless they fight a rematch. Again, Tim dominated the first 2 rounds, but that's why they call them championship fights, because there's 10 more rounds to go. And as I said before, Fundora has proven that as the fight gets going, he gets going as well and gets better. And we will never, hopefully we find out what would have happened if they fight again, mate. But as far as that last fight, I think we just got to put it to bed and get on with it. All right, John. Tim's power did look good. The rehydration clause in his last fight is something I didn't realise or hear about until this week, but that belt organisation does do a 10-pound rehydration limit. Yeah, it does. But look, at the end of the day, do we not know that Murtazaliev had to go through the same thing? He's been talking about going to middleweight as well. So how do we know that Murtazaliev didn't have the same problem? So I think it's all good to look through one set of eyes, but both fighters have got to go through it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Murtazaliev had to lose, or had to have the same weight restriction, or he did have the same weight restrictions with the 10 pounds, but didn't have the same issues as Tim did. So, and again, I don't think Tim was making excuses about it. He just said he felt a lot better. Even before the fight, he said he felt a lot better going into this fight because of not having that rehydration clause. So again, Tim wasn't using it as an excuse. He just said, I feel a lot better because I've had a good opportunity to rehydrate and eat properly, not just have to measure food or weigh food and the liquid I'm consuming. I had to keep it to a minimum. This time I was able to do what I wanted, and he did say before the fight that he did feel so much better. So what do we got there, Jack? I was really impressed that Tim started utilising his jab regularly. I believe he actually has a world-class jab, and if he mixes that in with moving forward, will help layer his offence beautifully. Yeah, well spoken there, Jack. I agree. He did use his jab well, and just everything about him was good. As I said before, tight defence, just took his time, precise with his punches, didn't waste any punches either. Just a really good performance from Tim. Still with Jack. If people watch Joey Spencer leading up, you wouldn't be surprised by his performance. The only real question marks were around Tim and if he had any carryover damage physically and mentally. Yeah, I'm with you, Jack. That's exactly the way I saw it, mate. I never for 1 second thought Joey Spencer would beat Tim, but I was really curious to see how Tim would present, and he did it with flying colours. Eminem sounds like Nikita's still a bit away from a return. Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it, this one? I mean, it's all been about the injury. I've got a feel to his hand. I've got a feeling it's a little bit more than that. I don't know for sure, but just my gut feeling is that maybe he's just not feeling it at the moment as far as boxing goes. And maybe the Tim fight last year sort of rattled him a little bit as well. And look, you got to be mentally switched on in this sport. And maybe, as I said, Nikita's just not feeling it at the moment. But I'm sure he'll be back. Maybe he just needs an extra couple of months to get himself right, and he'll be fine. But I've always said you're either all in or you're all out. There's no in between. So if he's not all in, then it's a good thing that he's stepping out for a little bit until he's 100%. What do you know about the Bud Crawford Australian Tour? I know a lot about it, actually, Eminem, because Grant Tszyu Brown is the one doing it. He's bringing him out here. Looks like it's going to be June, May or June, I think it is. I think he said to Taszyu that he starts training for Canelo mid-June, I think. So it has to be before that. So he's going to do a 3-city tour, Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And they'll be selling corporate tables, and Bud will just be going to each one and doing the speaking circuit and, VIP to packages and photos, all that sort of stuff. So 3 cities, Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. So keep a lookout for that. I did, when was it? I think it must be May, I'm thinking of. So it'll be next month. I'm sure details are coming soon. Haven't spoken to Taszyu for a couple of weeks, but by all accounts, it's happening. As is maybe the WBC convention and next year. We'll see what happens. He's pretty ambitious, Taszyu, and he always puts in and most of the time delivers. So, and he's apparently good mates with Bud now, so I'm sure that will happen. But yeah, it'll be a corporate type of event, and I'm not quite sure what the tickets will be. Maybe $5,000 a table, something out of 10, and you get all different things with that, and you get to meet Bud and get photos and all the rest with him. So keep a lookout for it. Once I know more, I'll mention it anyway. Yes, Andy, Bud is doing an Australian tour. Peter, hi Lynden, Pa beat her and it was a robbery. Yeah, well, look, Peter, as you know, mate, I thought on the night that maybe Pa did enough to win. I haven't actually watched it back in the meantime, but more people than not have told me that Shannon won the fight. So I'm going to believe it. On the night, I was probably I was doing a live watch along and was probably trying to be a bit too neutral about the whole thing, but a lot of people think that Shannon won the fight, Peter. Either way, I don't think it was a robbery whoever won. I mean, it was a close fight, and someone has to win, and it was shotgun in this instance. So I don't think you can ever call a close fight a robbery. But let's hope they get it on again. Now, I have heard that Jazzy Parr was offered the rematch and turned it down. So I suppose it's back onto her now. I like the sounds of Shotgun versus Sky, especially with the DAZN taker of Foxtel. Matchroom and No Limit card would be a cracker in Australia. That would be such a spicy event. Those girls aren't fans of each other, I can assure you of that. What is in over there? It is 11, so it'll be 11:58 a.m. in the morning. So it's in the morning over there. Good stuff. So nearly lunchtime. Good stuff there, Toby. Peter, all right. Thurman stopped Tszyu inside 4 rounds. Skills pay the bills, and he will destroy Tim. #levels. Okay, there's always 2 sides of it, mate. What's wrong with you, Peter? You seem a bit cranky tonight. Well, you're not going to give me shit about beating Carlton? Let me have it, mate. You need a Snickers. Who's it normally that's on here that needs a Snickers? He hasn't been on for a while. But sounds like you didn't have a great weekend, mate. All right. Sam, does Tim have a rematch clause with Fundora? If so, how long does it last for? No, he doesn't, Sam. We all thought he did, but he doesn't have a rematch clause. It was a handshake agreement. And Fundora said, yeah, it's a handshake agreement, but yeah, I've got a couple of other options. They should have fought straight away. They both should have waited, and the rematch should have been in Australia. Or maybe overseas, back in America, whatever. But the rematch should have been straight away. And for whatever reason, Fundora wanted to wait for Spence. Tim said, all right, well, I'm not going to wait around. I'm going to go for another belt. And didn't end well, but maybe down the track we'll see. There's Rayleigh Frame. How are you, Rayleigh? Thanks for joining in. Spencer waited in the ring after the fight, but they didn't interview him after or before Tim. Given it was main event, I thought they would speak to both fighters. Oh, sorry, Spencer. Spencer waited in the ring after the fight, but they didn't interview him after or before Tim. Given it was the main event, I thought they would speak to both fighters after the fight. Well, if that is the case, Rayleigh, that is piss poor from main event. I know it's the Tim Tszyu show, but yeah, if they left Spencer in the ring and didn't want to get a word with Joey Spencer, that's pretty poor from Ben Damon. If it was up to him, probably he would have had the producers in his ear. But I would have thought that in this country we would respect overseas fighters coming in, and at least give Joey Spencer a chance to have a say. Well, I think we all know what he would have said. Disappointed, all that sort of stuff. Tim was better than what he thought. Whatever. But yeah, if that was the case, that's poor form from Ben and main event. All right, Foster, what do you think about Boachuk versus Murtazaliev after Boachuk beats Is it Michael or Mikhail Fox? Tim's sparring partner for Fundora. Yeah, I think it's a good fight, Foster. I would say that's a 50-50 fight. I think you still have to stick with Murtazaliev, but I think the way he demolished him made him look a lot better than what he is. I wouldn't be surprised if Boachuk won that fight, but 50-50 for me. All right, we've got just a couple of more comments there, and we'll have to call it a night. Ross says, can't fight in Bendigo, no ring girls allowed. Yeah, if you didn't see that, back in the day, we promoted Jeff Horn and Michael Zarafa, and the local media got their knickers in a twist that we had ring girls. They thought we were exploiting the girls, and how dare we? And little did we know that the girls were dancers and models and whatever, and great girls who loved doing it. Most of the times the girls approached us about being on the shows, and as a little bit of a statement towards the Bendigo media and the Australian media that jumped all over it, Dean had the ring boy or guy or whatever you might want to call him, right up until the main event started, going around the ring with the card, and got a boo every time he went around the ring. All right, just a couple more and we'll get going. We'll roast down. Foster, do you think if Jai was signed to No Limit, he would have significantly more publicity promotion in Australia than he does currently with Matchroom? 100%, Foster. He would have. Look, maybe he wouldn't have had the same opportunities, though. Like, he's fought on the big Riyadh cards. He's headlining up in Queensland. So if it's a matter of him worrying about the Australian sort of public, then, yeah, it would have probably made sense to go more with No Limit. But he's with Tasman and Matchroom. He's fought on those big cards overseas, and I'm sure he's getting paid a lot more, getting a lot more exposure overseas. But yeah, if he had been in Australia, he'd be all over all the major newspapers all the time. He's seen all the saturation we've had with Tim in the last few weeks because of the arrangement with the main event and everyone else. Foxtel, what's the newspaper? Whatever it's called anyway. But all over the country, though, he would have had a lot more exposure. But maybe it's not just about Australian exposure for Jai Foster. Maybe he's just after his legacy and getting those big fights, and they just happen to be overseas at the moment. But who knows? All right, I think we're going to call it a night there, guys. Peter, what's that there? Yeah, Ross, Shotgun said Jazzy knocked back a 10-round fight on card. Yes, she did. That's right. What's who we got there? Hang on, we'll get a couple more. We'll keep going for a second here. Eminem says Kira Rustin's fighting in Perth later this month on Jackson, England card. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that. Unruly Girl 8. How are you, Unruly Girl? Tim should contact Thurman first and possibly attempt the confusing rematch clause with Fundora. Now Samson Lukovic won't allow Fundora for many related reasons I cannot discuss now. No Rafa. Okay, all right. Well, let's yeah, okay, we'll wait and see. Unruly Girl, you obviously know a little bit. What do you got there? Oh, it's Zarafa you're talking about. No Zarafa. Joey, no post. A little worried about him. I think he'll be all right there, Unruly Girl. I think, like everyone, his pride's probably hurt a little bit. He's probably on a plane home anyway, so I'm sure given a few days he'll be okay. But I'm with you there. Unruly Girl, no Zarafa at all. I just think that ship sailed. Peter, I'm all good. Just think Tim is a good fighter, but after what the Russian did to him, he's not a top 5 fight at 154. Charging $70 for the Spencer fight was highway robbery. Yeah, no, I'm with you there, mate. Good stuff, Sam. And last couple of comments. Andy says, Sorelli, salute. I saw that too. Was poor form. Poor Spencer travelled here to be on main event card and stood there post-fight for nothing. Yeah, not good if that is the case. Andy, question, how many fights does Timo PBC? Apparently they had the show on Amazon Prime app. Yeah, I heard it was a 6-fight deal, Andy, and I reckon he's 5 fights into it now. So the Keith fight will be obviously part of that, and then maybe it is Thurman, Fundora after that, who's with PBC. So we will see. But I heard it's 6 fights, Andy, and this was his third. Daniel, what's that? How much does main event charge to show the fights in the pubs and clubs? Anywhere between about $700 and $1,000, Daniel. So it's you talk about highway robbery at home, try it in a pub, where not only do you have to pay for the fight, then you've got to pay a staff member, Sunday rates, which is not cheap. So very rarely do you actually cover your costs, Daniel. It's pretty tough, mate. So Minnesota Mick, Joey was with Nick Noonan boy today. Gee, he was bad. All right, I didn't see that. I only spoke to Noonan yesterday too, so I'm not sure. I didn't see anything with him, but I'll keep a lookout for it. And he didn't rep the red, white, and blue. Yeah, it wasn't a great performance, mate. So, all right, last comment here. Andy's PBC milking free viewing rights of Tim. Did No Limit pay for everything? I'm not sure, Andy. I don't think PBC would have got the rights off this because this was 100. Well, maybe they did. I don't know how it works, Andy. Obviously, it was a No Limit card, and they would have got all the money. But whether they gave a kickback to PBC, I don't know, mate. There's all different arrangements. So, yeah, up yours, Peter. Just joking. Go Pies. They were much better than us, mate. I can't say anything because they were much better. And did Opataya get moved? Yes, mate. June 8th is the new date for Joe Opataya and Claudio Sequeiro. So keep a lookout for undercard details of that. All right, guys, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Really appreciate you all joining in. Make sure you watch Walking Boxing every morning. It's on before lunchtime at some stage. I always try and get it out. And also, as I said, on Wednesday night, we'll be doing the In Focus. This week will be Alexander Usyk, and we'll pick every week we'll pick a different fighter to do it with, and some other things we can think of as well. So, guys, have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.